Welcome in. Check the mic. We're back. Round one recap time. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. Thanks to everybody that was just with us watching live every pick in round one. Now it's time to go through it again. And for those listening on audio, for the first time, if you're listening to us, maybe Friday or sometime this weekend.
Welcome, audio listeners.
Welcome to the audio listeners coming out first thing Friday morning. A wild first round. They're always wild. They're always unpredictable. The worst mock draft ever tonight. No mock draft looked like this one. High-level thoughts on this thing? I thought it was exciting.
Yeah, fun draft. Went pretty quickly. We're getting slowly more disheveled as the weekend goes. We've lost the ties. We suited it up for the live show, and now with the recap first round thing, we've lost the ties. We're getting a little bit more, disheveled. Maybe tomorrow we'll even lose the sports coat. We'll just be in shirts or whatever. And then, by the end of the weekend, we'll just be looking like tramps again.
We got all dressed up again for night one. So anyway, we're going to go pick by pick. We'll go team by team. So the teams that had two, we'll just talk about both their picks together. Okay. That all sound good?
Sure.
It all started at pick number one. Fernando Mendoza, the pick to the Las Vegas Raiders. No surprises at the top. Mendoza, a Raider.
That would have been a hell of a surprise. If the Raiders had heel turned and gone somewhere else other than Mendoza, that would have been pretty shocking. But no. They draft Mendoza, the pick that they said they were going to make from weeks out. They made it. It's the right pick. Mendoza, I think, is a good prospect. Maybe he's not a spectacular, elite, number one in every single year prospect, but it's the right pick for the Raiders.
It was. He can hashtag make all the throws.
Make all the throws.
I think he's got an aggressiveness. I can't wait to see the types of receivers that they're going to try to pick up and pair with him. I think they still need some help at the receiver position, so I'm interested in that part of it for the Raiders. He's changed his LinkedIn. He's ready to go. He's the Raiders QB. He's their guy.
Yeah.
And I think a good fit for Clint Kubiak and what he wants to do. And, looking good.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's the right pick for them. Again, I'm getting kind of tired of the LinkedIn stuff, but he's the right kind of maniac to be a successful quarterback, right?
I can't believe him and Kirk Cousins are going to be teammates now. I think it's outstanding.
Honestly, it is the right type of quarterback for him to be mentor for him. And we talked about that quarterback documentary. I don't know that there's been many players, if ever, that have squeezed more out of what talent they had than Kirk Cousins has for his entire career. Like, everyone jokes about his agent going on getting the bag Hall of Fame, Mount Rushmore, whatever. Yeah. But genuinely, look at the stuff Kirk Cousins has done to try and squeeze every last inch out of what he has in the NFL. And he's been a good player for the majority of his career, from being, a fourth-round draft pick?
Yep.
He wasn't supposed to become the player that he became, but he did in part because he's also a maniac, right? He's kind of a lunatic. He doesn't waste time, researching how to dap up guys. He gives them a straight businessman's handshake, and he moves on to the next play in his head, right? That's what Mendoza needs.
Mendoza's got good size. I think he's got good zip, good carry on the ball. He elevated Cal when he was there, right from when he started, and then clearly elevated Indiana as well. I think Indiana had a ton of talent, and of course leads them to an undefeated season, the national title, made huge throws in crunch time all the way along the way. Just had to get all the same talking points out on Mendoza, probably for the last time now, maybe until we get to the Raiders recap when it comes to next week and when we go through team by team. But right move for the Raiders.
Yep.
He wasn't always the slam dunk number one overall, but became that guy, right? He pulled away from Ty Simpson. He pulled away from Dante Moore. Moore went back to school because Mendoza, down the stretch, Penn State game winner, Ohio State third in longs, national title game against Miami, made huge plays in crunch time.
He did. He elevated his stock. If you were looking for reasons to be concerned about it, you would sort of say, in hindsight, it's a very small sample size of play and games that sort of elevated him to this clear number one status quarterback, right? We're talking about a pretty small number of plays that have to go away or go the other way for him to not be that guy. And then that would be why if you're not a Raiders fan, you'd be like, well, did they draft a fraud? That would be the kind of stuff you'd point at, and you'd be like, well, if that stuff goes back, variant swings in the other direction, it wouldn't take much for him to go in the tank.
All right, we're going to go team by team here. Number 2 pick was David Bailey from the Jets. So the Jets end up with 3 picks in the first round. We knew that they had 2 and 16 going in. So at 2, they take David Bailey. At 16, they take Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq, and then they trade back into the first round, shades of 2022, when they traded back into the first to get Jermaine Johnson. This time it's back at pick 30 to take Omar Cooper Jr., the wide receiver out of Indiana.
Which had originally been Denver's pick, and then became Miami's pick, and then became San Francisco's pick before becoming the Jets' pick.
That pick was moving all over the place at pick 30.
Yeah.
So that was Denver's original pick. So going through this, we didn't really know what the Jets were going to do. Supposedly they've been on this for a while. David Bailey, despite the canceled 30 visit, all those talking points that we had, they're still...
What a red herring.
They still made the pick.
What a bait and switch. So I think early, we started off saying we would take Ruben Bate at number 2. I think it then felt like David Bailey had become the guy as the sort of cleanest of the prospects in terms of the least scary red flag. Then it felt like Arvell Reese was becoming the guy clearly, and then it ends up eventually becoming David Bailey, and maybe it had always been him, or at least from the point where it looked like him as well. I do come back to that. I think if you're in this draft and you're like, look, there's no clean blue chip superstar player, at least one that doesn't play running back or safety, so who's the guy that scares you the least? I feel like David Bailey's the one that's least scary. He's the most obviously elite pass rusher that's conventionally elite, right? He's twitchy, he's got the burst, the speed, he's got the stuff you usually see from edge rushers, and if he's got a weakness, it's that he's average in the run game. We can live with that.
He is so fast to the top of the pocket. So I think when you add him in with, say, like Devondre Sweat in the middle, and I think you don't draft a guy because of what the other players are around him. You want him to be able to win on his own. But I just think Bailey's a great complement to other good rushers. And you think you saw that on the Texas Tech defensive line last year when someone won from the interior, or dealing with Romello height on the other side. You have to worry about Bailey's speed and twitchiness. Sam. Again, he's not a run through your face type of guy as far as, he'll win with power here and there. He's not a hard edge setter. But I think he's the best pure pass rusher in the draft. I think in another draft, maybe he goes 8 to 12. In another loaded draft, maybe he goes a little bit lower. But I think in this draft, that's the right pick at 2.
Right. I do think he's a step down from some of the elite top pass rushers taken in, other drafts, right? The Will Anderson Jr.'s, I know Trayvon Walker went number 1 overall, but we thought Aiden Hutchinson was clearly the best pass rusher in that draft. Those guys, Nick Bosa, blah, blah, blah. He's not at that level, but I think he is the least scary, cleanest player to take at the top of this draft if you're the Jets and you're just trying to hit the best player.
So we're going pick by pick, except when the team has multiple picks. We'll talk about all of them in one group here. So again, at pick 16, Kenyon Sadiq. At the time, we said, how about this? They go him instead of wide receiver 3. So there were only 2 receivers off the board at that time. They go with the first tight end off the board in Sadiq, and then they circled back and got Omar Cooper Jr. at wide receiver. As I said on the live broadcast, the trusty draft score model that I have, I'll reveal some of the numbers: a 97 for Bailey, a 92 for Sadiq, a 95 for Omar Cooper. I love all these picks. They're all in the range to become high-end players.
Yeah, Sadiq was the sort of curveball of the trio. I mean, people were saying that Omar Cooper Jr. to the Jets at 16 was a lock, and they end up going with Kenyon Sadiq as well. I really like Kenyon Sadiq. I think he's a good player. He's an unusual player, and I don't think he's the easiest sort of plug-and-play guy. I think you need to have a plan for him because he's not the sort of standard move tight end that people think about when they're like, here's a really good athletic receiving tight end. He's fast. He's rocked up. He's powerful. He can block. You can have him as the wide tight end in your formation and just dominate at the line of scrimmage. He can destroy linebacker safeties when he's on the move. He's a really good blocker. And he'll run away from basically everybody you've got trying to cover him. I don't think he's a particularly good zone type of receiver where he understands where the soft spots are. He's able to maximize that window, settle down, give a quarterback a good place to throw the ball. I don't think he's necessarily a great route runner either. So it's not the easiest guy in the world to integrate into your offense, but the dude's a playmaker. I mean, we've seen that throughout his college career.
It's kind of like what I described with Bailey. It's almost like when he's around other good playmakers, I think it'll help accentuate his skill set. The fact that, his speed running up the seam, his speed running on deep crossers, and his speed and quickness after the catch. I know I was mostly half joking, but a little serious about taking running back reps. Put him in the backfield with Breece Hall now, if you're the Jets, and maybe give him a couple handoffs here and there, because I just think he's got the athleticism to challenge the defense. Sometimes tight ends take a couple of years, and what you described, maybe not having that natural feel, and it's a feel thing that I think some tight ends take some years. David Njoku, TJ Hawkinson, takes them a couple of years sometimes. That's the risk with your first-round tight ends. But Sadiq has all the tools. He's young at the position. He's a little undersized for a true Y tight end. He'll pair with Mason Taylor. I think they both have some similarities in their game where you'd rather have them off the ball as more of an H-back type. But Sadiq can move people. I mean, he can get low and move people at the point of attack despite being 245 pounds.
Yeah.
He moves people like a 260-pounder, right?
Absolutely,
so,
yeah. That's the thing. I think he's always been
be the three-down tight end.
He's always been kind of miscast, I think, when people just sort of – he doesn't fit the stereotype of what you expect a 240-something pound receiving tight end to be. He is actually a good blocker, and I think he can play that position. The point is, like, unless you're Gronk, right, it doesn't really make sense to have your receiving tight end attached in the formation and playing that sort of true – run blocking tight end all the time. Like, it makes sense to get that guy away from that as fast as you can because generally those guys are better the more space they're in. So, but I think people that just dismiss him as a guy that doesn't block, he's a receiving move tight end only, that's not who he is.
And then Omar Cooper Jr., both of us love him. I think, like you said at the end of the show, like, if they had taken him at 16, we would have said, fine. Everybody mocked him at 16.
Yeah.
The Jets reportedly really loved him. They didn't love him enough to take him at 16, but loved him enough to trade back in to the first round to get him at 30.
Or maybe they just loved Sadiq that much as well.
I know, yeah, and they end up getting both of those guys.
Yeah, I love Omar Cooper Jr. Best run after the catch receiver in the draft. Incredibly hard to tackle. People had comped him. I saw some comps to Deebo Samuel, and again, it's one of those ones that's not really fair because the dude's a unicorn. But you can see it. Like, people bounce off him the way people bounce off Deebo Samuel. I don't think you're going to have Omar Cooper Jr. in the backfield taking running back handoffs or anything, but that type of thing, right?
Sadiq's going to be doing that.
Yeah, well, that's true. And people kind of bounce off him too. Like,
yeah.
Maybe that was a concerted effort. Like, they've added two guys that add some serious run after the catch toughness to that team.
Yeah, I love Omar Cooper Jr. I love his competitiveness at the catch point. He is bendy and difficult to tackle after the catch. Yak got better in New York for both players, Sadiq and Cooper. Couple playmakers there. And look, they're still playing the QB game. It's Geno Smith right now as a bridge quarterback. Whoever they bring in next year as their presumably drafted quarterback has a couple weapons that they've added this year. So I like what the Jets have done. I know when a team drafts 3 times in the first round, everybody seems to love it. Hey, they got 3 players that we all know. But I think the Jets worked the board pretty well here and picked some good players along the way.
Yeah, I like the players that they came away with in addition to, I don't think anything about the process was bad either. So good work.
So we didn't know going in. We didn't know who they were going to pick it to. They go Bailey. And then the last week, rumors about the Arizona Cardinals loving Jeremiyah Love seemed to be true. And they go with Jeremiyah Love at pick 3. It was surprising, Sam.
It really was, yeah. I had heard the rumors that somebody in Arizona really liked Love and that was a serious option. I didn't really think it wasn't that I couldn't believe somebody in the building was making that argument. I didn't expect it to win out. Like, that's why I thought, remember the real rumors heading into the draft was Kansas City was going to trade up to 3 and Arizona was trying to trade out, and it felt like that was going to be the compromise, right? Just to stop us drafting Jeremiyah Love, we're going to trade out and do something different. Instead, they end up actually drafting him. The rumor was that, they were debating Arvell Reese or whoever, and then somebody powerful enough within that organization really liked Jeremiyah Love and was sufficiently high up in the organization that everybody else wasn't able to simply dismiss it and say, thanks for your input, but we're talking about Mauigoa or Arvell Reese here, move on. And then actually, apparently, powerful enough that they make Jeremiyah Love the decision.
The team press conferences are going on right now, and I can only imagine they're saying, hey, this was just a case if he was the top player on our board.
Yeah.
It's best player available. That's what we're going to do. And we usually adhere to that philosophy, but there's like a BPA is not this it's not this nebulous concept. There are some parameters and guardrails around it. You have to adjust for positional value and those types of things. So the question now becomes, I'll give you the positive and the negative for Arizona. The negative side is you have James Conner. You just paid Tyler Algier as a free agent. Mm-hmm. And you have Trey Benson, who fantasy people, and we liked him a couple years ago, but I mean, there's two odd men out here.
Yeah, I mean, the chat there, Death himself, with a super chat says, am I crazy to suggest that a running back room that already had Benson, Algier, and James Conner didn't need an upgrade? Mauigoa would have helped their run game more.
He would have. Now, they clearly didn't have Mauigoa ranked as high. They've got the injury questions. Who knows what ended up going into that decision? Then the other negative, it's like we're obligated to cite he's the seventh highest paid running back in the NFL now at this pick. That's Jeremiyah Love.
Which I'm fine with, by the way. Like, I don't have as big a problem with that as other people do. Like, okay, the point being, even if he ends up being exactly the player that you think he is, you're already paying for it, so there's no surplus value, right? Which is fine. That's a reasonable argument to make. But the point is, the offset to that is, but the certainty that he is this guy is so much better than it would be that Arvell Reese, say, or Mauigoa, say, becomes the player that you think they are as well. Like, that's the difference. Like, you're offsetting, like, yes, if you instead drafted Arvell Reese and said, well, he's whatever it is, edge 38 in terms of paying for it. Yeah, but the difference is what is the chance that he's going to be that guy, given he's a projection and a tweener and all these kinds of things. So I'm actually fine with the idea of he's the seventh best paid running back in the NFL from day one, because I think you're so certain that he's really good. And I also think that in this draft, amongst all others, it is much easier to gravitate towards the guy that you're sure about, because Arvell Reese is a project. Mauigoa might be a guard. All the other guys that were options are not easy sells necessarily. Like David Bailey would be the one guy. Again, the reason the Jets drafted David Bailey at 2 would be the reason that the Cardinals would want him over maybe Jeremiyah Love. But once Bailey's gone, everybody else has got something to be scared of.
Right. So we said all along the way, like in this draft, Caleb Downs, Jeremiyah Love, we come back to just get the best football player. It's just really interesting that Arizona is loaded at running back, and then they made this move. So now, is there a subsequent move to be made for James Conner, for Trey Benson being available? We'll see what happens with Arizona. On the positive side here, what is Jeremiyah Love as a player? Ran a 4.36, big time, long speed, big time playmaker, natural pass catcher, same 40 time as Jahmyr Gibbs. And when Gibbs came out, we had to give both sides of the story, right? When you draft a running back this high, here are the potential negatives. The positives, though, when you dropped Jahmyr Gibbs onto that Detroit Lions offense, now they had the O-line intact, yes, completely intact. They were very good. But they also had Amon-Ra, and they ended up drafting Sam Laporta. They had Jameson Williams. And I remember even on the broadcast that night when they drafted Gibbs saying, hey, good luck covering all these types of playmakers. If you're facing the Arizona Cardinals right now, who still have a quarterback question, if you're facing them, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, who's just a stud when Marvin Harrison's not playing, Trey McBride, who's become top 3 tight end.
Arguably the best in the NFL.
Maybe the best in the NFL. And then you add Jeremiyah Love to the equation. So your checklist of get the offensive line first, can this guy elevate the run game and not have to be relied upon? Maybe it's not there yet from an O-line perspective, but from a playmaker perspective, I could see the Cardinals in this room saying, man, good luck covering this. Got to figure out QB, got to figure out maybe right guard and right tackle still. But maybe a year or two from now, when they have that sorted, it's a really tough offense to cover.
Yeah, and honestly, so that's the thing. Like, I keep talking about running backs as this, do you draft a running back here, yes or no? It's like a flow chart, right? And step one is always, do you have the offensive line to make it work? And if you don't go anywhere in the flow chart. The answer is just no. If you move on from the flow chart, if you move on from an answer yes, and then you get into, surplus value, what did you leave on the table, blah, 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 blah. I honestly think they go yes everywhere after the offensive line. I think if you can talk yourself into that first step, I think Jeremiyah Love and the Cardinals and this draft in particular, I think you can actually talk yourself into yes for every other step in the flow chart. But my problem with it is when you read out the starting 5 offensive linemen and you say their starting 5 offensive line right now is something along the lines of Paris Johnson Jr., Isaac Seumalo, the new addition, Hjalti Froholt, Isaiah Adams, Matt Pryor, Elijah Wilkinson, some 2 of those 3 at right guard and right tackle. Is that good enough for Jeremiyah Love to be the player that he needs to be right away? I don't think you can be sure that it is, so I would say no. Now, the one other element of that is, and I think, look, with running back in particular, you draft more for year one than you do with any other position because their shelf life is so short and maybe they're only one contract players and all those kinds of things. But much like they might not have an answer at quarterback, so let's just get everything else and get quarterback next year. You might look at this and say, Jeremiyah Love doesn't come along very often. There is no alternative where you're like, who am I leaving on the table for Jeremiyah Love? Arvell Reese is a project. He might not even be any good on the defensive end side of things, blah, blah, blah. You might talk yourself into, let's just get the dude that's a stud. I'll find a guard and a tackle, free agency next year. And then once we find those guys, well, then everything's good. I get it. Like, I wouldn't do it. I think I would talk myself out of this and I would say, look, I just can't draft him here. But I understand Arizona coming to the conclusion that he's the guy to take because, again, let's give him his due. He is an elite running back prospect. The dude is built like Adrian Peterson. He's lightning fast. He's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. He's a good receiver. He's kind of got everything.
I think that's the conversation for these next few picks. I get it, too, because of the alternatives. So that puts us to the Titans at 4 and Carnell Tate from Ohio State. They also traded back in the first to go get Keldric Faulk at pick 31.
Yep.
But this first one, Carnell Tate, I already see the chat talking about, hey, it's a reach, it's this, it's that. Like, yeah, I think Carnell Tate's like a high-end number 2 in this nebulous number 2 receiver type of world. In this draft, I am perfectly fine with taking Tate anywhere from 4 to 7. I thought in this range, perfectly fine. And you have a weapon for Cam Ward. And the alternative is, like, I think they would rather have Bailey. I think Bailey was the perfect fit for Robert Saleh's defense. The perfect fit, but he's not there. And what's the next piece? Well, if they had to debate between Jeremiyah Love or Carnell Tate, I would take Tate. And I think if you're Arizona, maybe that's a little redundant with Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson. But for Tennessee, they need a pass catcher. I think this is the right move for them.
I love this move. I'm surprised they did it because I think it's the kind of move that you or I would make, but generally the NFL does not. But I absolutely endorse it. The problem with you could argue that basically almost everybody drafted in the top 10 in this draft is a reach, right? Because in a normal year, I think they would be, right? If you were comparing these guys to a Will Anderson Jr. or an Aiden Hutchinson or a Penei Sewell or a Jamar Chase or a Joe Alt or the players that normally go in the top 10, these guys would all look like wild reaches. But those guys aren't in this draft. The two guys in this draft that would fit the bucket of those types of elite prospects are Jeremiyah Love, who we've just debated whether he should have gone that high at all, and Caleb Downs, who went outside the top 10 because even he is, undersized or whatever, like not the super freak athlete that people want to see at that spot. So I don't think you could argue that any of these guys would have been reaches. The only difference is he's a reach at a position that, generally doesn't go in the top 4. But when you look at what he is and where their needs are, I mean, last year Cam Ward was okay as a rookie quarterback, but was getting better by the end of the year despite having very little help around him. They went and added the help around him. I think that's good, absolutely. And I like Tate better than a lot of other people do as well.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both we both defaulted to every time we talked about, hey, Washington at 7 or the Saints at 8 or the Browns at 6. We're like, hey, Tate would be the guy. Like, we both had him over Jordyn Tyson.
Yep.
I think he's very good at everything. I think he's very good at getting open at intermediate and deep routes. He's very good in and out of his breaks. He's good with his footwork. I like the way our friend Greg Cosell talks about it. He talks about him attacking the blind spots of corners.
Yeah.
You've talked about that as, moving corners or whatever it may be. He's just really good at it. And I was surprised by this, Sam. I was surprised before I went into the tape thinking I'm just going to see a contested catch receiver and instead found a guy that's great off press, was actually creating separation down the field and winning down the field and being 1 or 2 steps behind corners despite only running a 4.5 340. I thought Tate is outstanding at everything, 8 to 10 yards plus. I think he's really good.
I mean, I don't see, there was the brief period during the combine when everyone's like, this guy's slow because he runs a 4.5 or whatever. I don't think you can see that anywhere in his tape. Like, nowhere do you see this guy's slow. Maybe you don't say, look, the guy's a 4.2 blazer, but like, you don't look at his tape and say there's a lack of speed here. Like, he's plenty fast. He consistently wins deep down the field. He's consistently wide the hell open deep down the field. And I don't think he's necessarily limited to being this, high-end number 2, can't be a number 1. I think he could be a number 1 receiver in an offense. I don't know. I don't feel as good about it as you would with a Jamar Chase or whatever. But, again, the comp I keep coming back to is he's like Devontae Smith, but with 25 extra pounds on him, right? And if you gave Devontae Smith 25 extra pounds, he'd probably be a number 1 wide receiver. So, why can't Carnell Tate be a number 1 wide receiver? So,
yeah, I think he's got the production profile of your Devontae Smiths or T. Higgins or whatever your high-end number 2s look like. And then the Titans have him. They've got Chimera Dike, Ioane. You've got Wan'Dale Robinson playing in the slot, and Calvin Ridley's back for now. So just dropping Carnell Tate into that wide receiver room, I think upgrades it quite a bit. And you get to see what you have in Cam Ward much quicker. And look, their debate, I think, is probably between Tate and Arvell Reese right there. And for Reese, I think the fit for Saleh is not as clean in that in that defense where it's just straight 4-man front. You're either in that defense, he's either a defensive end or a linebacker. There's no hybrid. There's no hybrid role.
Yeah.
And they're probably just projecting him to the edge. And that's risky. Look, at the Arvell thing is risky for me, for a lot of people at that range. And I think Carnell Tate's the right move for the Titans.
And even if you liked Arvell Reese as an edge rusher within that defense, I still think there's a debate to be had of, are we better institutionally by giving the quarterback, Cam Ward, our most important player, giving him somebody to help him, right? Is that a better use of resources than drafting the edge rusher we really like just because our head coach is a defensive-minded guy, right? I think you could easily talk yourself into, maybe even if you had Reese ranked a little bit higher, Carnell Tate is the more important player to add to the team.
That takes us, and then pick 31. So the Titans moved up from 34 back into the first round, pick 31. This was New England's original pick. New England traded up with Buffalo. Buffalo traded out. They traded down 3 times tonight. Monster night for the Bills with 3 trade downs and a lot of picks accumulated. So Tennessee comes back up. They take Keldric Faulk, the edge rusher out of Auburn. We think he's super young, but he's long, played inside, played outside, multi-gap versatility, excellent run defender, just doesn't have the pass rush production of a first-rounder. But as you said, in the late first, I think you're getting still a good football player with that pass rush upside.
Yes. This is a classic example of a guy where I think because you change the sort of level he was getting drafted at, the expectations change and the value proposition, the risk-reward changes massively as well. Coming out of the Combine, in Mike Sando's article where he was interviewing some executives, they were talking about this guy as being a cast-iron top 10 draft pick. I'm like, man, I don't like that. I understand he's athletically gifted and he's 6'6", 275, and he's fast. He runs a 4.6 something. The tools are there, but there's just the lack of production is too scary at that spot. But when you're talking about the bottom of the first round with a bunch of players already gone, then I get it. Then roll the dice because he's a good run defender. He's going to be a solid part of the rotation even if he doesn't bring anything anymore as a pass rusher. And he's only 20 with very rudimentary pass rush moves. I think there's reason to think you can develop that pretty quickly. So I think the bottom of the first, this ends up being a steal.
If you I hate using high floor and low ceiling, but if you want to consider you're getting a good run defender at worst, that's a high floor player.
Exactly.
Right? And there's still potential there, not only because he's young, but because he's got the size, the length, and athleticism.
That hits one of the key.
Did I hit the high floor player?
Our guy stick to the models.
High floor player is a guy that hasn't done it yet.
Well, it was a high ceiling player, which means he has a terrible floor that we've chosen not to focus on.
Ignore the floor.
Something like that.
Ignore the floor. Fascinating move by the Titans, and the thing I said at the end of the draft, I think they had an ideal scenario. Like we were talking about the Browns being receiver, tackle, receiver. I think the Titans had a perfect world of edge receiver or vice versa, and they went receiver and then the edge at the end of the first round.
I think a really nice draft for them. Yeah, stick the models. NFL draft analysts speak. High ceiling means the floor is a disaster. We've chosen not to discuss the floor.
Glad we got some of that. All right, pick 5. Now the New York Giants take Arvell Reese, and then they come back at pick 10, Francis Mauigoa out of Miami. So Reese falls to 5. We had talked to him, about him being in the mix at 2, 3. The Giants do play more of this hybrid, old school 34 type of defense, where Reese now there is some flexibility there. And now there's a ton of flexibility because Abdul Carter's already there. He's a linebacker to edge conversion.
Yeah.
Kayvon Thibodeau still on the roster as of now. Brian Burns is there, just loading up on players. I do love the press conferences, the post-game press conferences. There is, first off, a great story that we just got tagged in that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, we'll get that when we get there.
But there's also the other thing I saw come across the timeline was John Harbaugh.
I assume the Cardinals have already talked about Jeremiyah Love as being an offensive weapon.
I'm sure he's an offensive weapon and the best player.
He's not a running back. He's an offensive weapon.
The Giants had Arvell Reese as the top non-QB on their board, so they get their top player at pick 5.
I believe that. I mean, I would, again, this is not a normal draft, right? I think the spread would have been all over the place in terms of who the best players were, how you put that together, et cetera. I love Arvell Reese. I mean, the more I watched him, the more I talked myself into. I just got excited by what he could be. I think he could be a top-level off-the-ball linebacker. I think he could be a top-level edge rusher. And I want to see somebody deploy him as a true hybrid player because it's honestly what he was at Ohio State, even more so than a Jalen Walker a year ago, for Georgia and then the Falcons. Arvell Reese was playing actual hybrid, right? They were using him as an off-the-ball linebacker, and then they would walk him down to the line of scrimmage, and then he would run through a right tackle, right, and to make a play as an edge rusher. And again, you watch Ben Solak's video with him, he didn't know what he was doing as a pass rusher. They didn't coach him up as a pass rusher. They just said, go nuts, do what you do. And he was making it up on the fly to the point where he didn't even know the moves he was doing. Like, he didn't know the names for them, right? So if you teach him, there's absolutely reason to think he could become a top-tier pass rusher. But again, I think there is a world now in today's NFL where you can make genuine hay out of a true hybrid player, right? Remember the way we used to say, again, this is why the offensive weapon thing has always been ridiculous. But like a running back moving out to line up as a wide receiver doesn't stress a defense. You think it does, but it actually doesn't. They move a linebacker out there, they move a safety out there, and actually the production's terrible. They're not worried about it, right? What really screws up a defense is when you take a wide receiver and put him in the backfield, because that messes up with the numbers, with the blocking numbers. It changes the math. It screws up your personnel packages on defense from when you looked at the huddle. It jacks everything, right? I think there's a world where a guy like Arvell Reese, where you can't tell what personnel package they're in based off him being on the field, causes problems for an offense, right? And suddenly you don't know if you have to account for him in the blocking scheme or if he's just ornamental and he's in coverage. I think that can really screw up a defense if a team is willing to tap into it.
If you're willing to do
the way most teams haven't. But Harbaugh's defenses in Baltimore for years have been the closest ones that would do something like that. I checked earlier during the draft actually to see if they crossed over, but the other hybrid player way back when is, remember, Adalius Thomas. Like, I think he left like the year before Harbaugh got to Baltimore, so it's not like they
he went to New England. I mean, he was supposed to be like the greatest free agent for Bill Belichick because he was like, he lines up on the edge, and he's a safety, and he's a corner, and he's a linebacker.
But I do, and we've had players that have sort of dabbled at this stuff, and Micah Parsons.
Peterson way back.
Julian Peterson, and then remember when Von Miller was sort of like a two-down off-the-ball linebacker and then an edge rusher. I just think there's a world where if somebody thinks that highly of Arvell Reese. Like if the Giants look at him and say, this is the best player in this draft, well then build a defense around him. Prove it. Go and construct the system around this dude and let him go nuts.
I mean, even just adding Tremaine Edmonds in free agency and the different types of long body types that they have and versatile players. Mike McDonald talks about, can you take your front five and completely disguise them and rush the passer from there? I'll add one more piece because I love the division stories that come out of the draft. So if Reese and Abdul Carter are, they're hybrid linebackers, and Carter moved around a lot. He would line up in the A-gap last year a lot. He'd spy. So now you have two guys who could spy quarterbacks in a division that have Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels. So you've got guys that are pass rushers. They can spy. They have linebacker skills. They have edge rush skills. Now, look, I'm a sucker for this stuff sometimes, and I try to back off being a sucker for this. The Isaiah Simmons versatility, if jack of all trades, master of none, just be careful with that. So the risk with Reese is if you're trying to make him a full-time edge, or if you're trying to make him a full-time edge, you might not be able to do it. Full-time linebacker, the value might not be there in the top 5. But if you could tap into all of those skill set, maybe you hit the home run. So I'm interested to see what they do.
Yeah.
The next domino to fall is what happens with Kayvon Thibodeau, who I still think is a good player, but overall disappointing, I would say, as the number 5 overall pick a couple years ago. But for a team that needs a pass rusher or a number 2 pass rusher, could be a nice trade piece for the Giants and a nice addition for a team, but see what they're willing to pay. Because he's up against it contract-wise.
As you said, the post-game press conferences are all over the place now, so I haven't seen if they've answered this question already. But do you think that drafting him as high as 5 straight out says with their intent that he's not an off-the-ball linebacker for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think most teams want him to rush the passer more, and the only time he dabbles as a linebacker is maybe some early down stuff, but he's a pass rusher. And then on third down, it's Reese, Abdul Carter, and Brian Burns, and we're moving you guys around. I'm going to say Thibodeau's out at some point. You're moving those guys around, and you're creating mismatches and indecision on for the offense. One
reason I feel a lot better about him than I do with some of these other hybrid players, and again, I'm kind of with you that I tend to get a little bit suckered into general hybrid. The theory of this guy, right? That classic story of the theory of this player is actually better than what he is, right?
Yeah.
But the Isaiah Simmons thing in particular, like Isaiah Simmons, the problem with him, I think, is that what he was not where the NFL wanted to put him. And so he wasn't really a hybrid. What he was a big safety.
Yeah.
And because he was a big safety, the NFL looked at that and said, well, you're a linebacker. Don't be ridiculous. This 6'5", 240 pound, you're not a safety, you're a linebacker. Stop playing as something you're not. You're a linebacker. And the problem is he wasn't a linebacker, and so he just became not a good football player. The thing with Arvell Reese, though, is I think even if you decide he can't actually be a full-time edge rusher, and so, okay, I guess we got to move him back to linebacker, I think he's awesome at linebacker. I think he's a really good off-the-ball linebacker.
A lot of teams
So my point is, I don't think you have the same fear that you do with an Isaiah Simmons, where if you just have to move him to linebacker, right. One of my favorite plays for Arvell Reese is a play where he actually gets beat in coverage, but from being up at the line of scrimmage against Wisconsin, right? He's at the line of scrimmage, he drops and he runs with the tight end on a post route, and then he turns back inside, so he doesn't run outside with him and just try and shadow him. He opens his hips and flips back to the quarterback, drops underneath the play, and then it just gets over his arm and gets through to the tight end anyway. But that's an absurd coverage play for a dude who's being talked about as a pass rusher.
Chad is suggesting that Harbaugh said he's lining up next to Tremaine Edmonds, and he's playing linebacker.
Nice.
That doesn't take them out of the running to use him as a blitzer
or a hybrid player, yeah.
As a hybrid player on
right.
in sub packages and on third down. But I think there's a lot of flexibility. Edmonds is an athletic freak, and he's long, and you've got Reese, and you got Abdul Carter and Brian Burns. It's a really interesting mix on that side of the ball. They just need help at defensive tackle now with Dexter Lawrence out.
And by the way,
Dexter Lawrence pick.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I encourage the chat to continue to fill in our blanks from press conferences where we're not able to see anything.
Yeah, please. If you guys have gotten some information from pressers already, I like to watch those either tomorrow or after the draft, especially the post-draft ones.
But any questions we posed that have been answered by the coach?
Yeah, please let us know.
Absolutely. Throw that in the chat.
We've been working. We've been live here the whole time. So then forever the Dexter Lawrence pick becomes Francis Mauigoa. Did they say he's playing guard? Because that was our projection during the live show. The assumption is that he's going to be the plug-and-play right guard, fills a position of need. Jermaine Illuminor gets re-signed at right tackle. They have Andrew Thomas at left tackle. So assuming that Mauigoa is their right guard of the future here.
Yeah,
and maybe a future right tackle at some point.
Yeah, I guess. An insurance policy, if nothing else, right? Like if Illuminor gets hurt, theoretically, you can immediately kick him out to tackle as your insurance. That would be a decent upgrade over just a random backup swing tackle. The interesting thing about this to me, I said during the broadcast, is if you are planning on him being guard, unless the sort of position flexibility, the insurance policy is valuable to you, you're out there declaring that he's a better guard than Venga Ioane, because that was a player that was being paired with them at number 10 quite often. But the point being, clearly they had this intention of tone setter on defense, tone setter on the offensive line, let's get tougher.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a nice couple first picks here.
And you're doing that with Mauigoa. I mean, 6'5",
Yes.
6'6", 330 pounds. Dude moves people when he hits them. Like, you're getting stronger and tougher up the middle with Mauigoa.
We have our friend Mike Renner, who thinks he's got potential,
like
Pro Bowl
all-pro,
ability, all-pro, whatever, at guard. Brandon Thorne liked him better at guard. I think he's a people mover at the line of scrimmage. I think some of his lunging and some of the bad reps that he had on the edge might be mitigated on the interior.
Harbaugh says guard with tackle versatility.
Yeah, so that, as expected there, right? So that's great. I mean, the idea of, okay, if there's an injury, you could kick him out. And we theorized, hey, why would you maybe separate him from Venga Ioane, who just got drafted by the Ravens, Harbaugh's old team? The positional versatility is a great tiebreaker for Mauigoa. To have him go at 10, Ioane goes at 14. Ioane is a guard only, and Mauigoa could play a tackle if he needs to. So the positional versatility, the toughness, the run game's improved, and the Giants all of a sudden, remember, we're 2-3 years removed from them perennially having a bottom 3 or 4 offensive line. They're much closer to the middle of the pack, and if a couple things hit, maybe even closer to the top 10 now, especially if Mauigoa is special. So that's the Giants at 5 and 10. Then some drama happened, Sam.
Drama.
First trade up of the draft, the Kansas City Chiefs came up from 9 to 6 to take Mansoor Delane, the cornerback out of LSU, and then Peter Woods eventually is their pick at pick 29. So the Chiefs go back-to-back defensive players with both of their picks. They gave up a 3 and a 5 to move up from 9 to 6 to take Mansoor Delane, the consensus top cornerback in the draft.
Yeah, and I think with Jermond McCoy falling presumably because of the knee injury concerns, the gap between Mansoor Delane and anybody else became pretty overwhelming. Like it was seen as a sort of a top 2, and then maybe some people had McCoy as number 1 if his knee was healthy, and then the second that started to be flagged as a potential long-term problem, it's like it's Delane by a mile, and then we can debate Chris Johnson, D'Angelo Pons, whoever is number 2, but like if you want the corner, this is the guy you want to go for. I think Delane is a top-tier prospect. I don't know why he wasn't talked about more as a genuine blue-chip player in this draft. Again, particularly this draft, where like there aren't any, right? So why were we not focusing more on Delane, who, okay, it's 1 year of being this player, but this player is a top-tier blue-chip caliber prospect. Like he's an elite cover guy. He was absolutely locked down last season. The dude is incredibly patient, doesn't get beaten at all, right? Is a fluid athlete, has plenty fast. What's the downside? Why are we not talking this guy up as a top-tier player?
I was so impressed with Delane's tape last year. He was pretty good at Virginia Tech and unbelievable at LSU. Everything about him. Footwork, you talked about the production, the footwork, the ball skills. From day one, he was outstanding. Runs a 4.38 at his pro day. I think he ticked a lot of boxes. At the beginning of the year, I was not expecting him to be drafted this high. But after 1 week, watching him in the Clemson game, it was like, it happens every year in college football. There's either a player in week 1 who comes out of nowhere and just looks like a first rounder, or in this case, a player who just improves, and that's where Delane is. And I think it's interesting that the Chiefs, sometimes we fall too much into these trends and we think, well, they're so good that they just have a pipeline of day 3 corners and that's their thing.
Right.
Even though they drafted Trent McDuffie a couple of years ago, they've done a good job of either finding corners or developing them. And I think you just trust the Chiefs that, hey, they're going to find the next corner and identify, I should say, the next corner for Spags defense. Go play press coverage, go play man, trust this guy, and this is your Trent McDuffie replacement. Now, did you give up a lot to get him? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what those 3rd and 5th round picks look like and everything. But I thought for the Browns it was a great trade, and we'll talk about how they got there. But the Chiefs get, I think, the top corner on the board, and as soon as he ran that 4.38, I was like, this dude's definitely going top 10.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs identified it and went and got him.
I really like the 2 players. Well, I really like the 2 players at the positions that the Chiefs were able to get them, right? Peter Woods, we can talk about, how much you like him in a vacuum, but where they got him, I think it's good value. So I really like the 2 players that the Chiefs came away with in this draft. The questions for them would be the process of when you fold in the idea that you had Trent McDuffie, right? Like you had this player, okay, you had to pay him, like he was going to need to be paid like one of the best corners in the NFL, but like you had a top-tier corner that you voluntarily moved away from, presumably just to get cheaper. And then you have these extra draft picks, you did some trading, you end up with Mansoor Delane, you end up with Peter Woods, et cetera. It's like, yeah, that's really nice. But I feel like you have to sort of fold in, the fact that you traded away Trent McDuffie to start all this in the first place. I just need to at least be a prism through which you view this decision-making tree.
So the pick at 29 that they end up picking up in the Trent McDuffie trade becomes Peter Woods.
Yeah.
Woods last year at this time was thought to be top 5.
So like
pick.
Peter Woods plus Mansoor Delane plus a couple of lower draft picks for Trent McDuffie. Like, is that,
Yeah. Plus a lot of cap flexibility. A lot
Sure.
of, and so Woods, is this the long-term Chris Jones replacement potentially? Fascinating prospect, another one who's maybe even was more productive as a true freshman than he was any other year. Disappointed as a junior. There was reasons for maybe his production being down as a sophomore when he played more on the edge as a 300-pounder. But I think he's got a ton of skills, coordination, good hands. It was just like every other Clemson player, disappointed last year from a production standpoint, especially rushing the passer. So his best play was probably his freshman and sophomore years. I've talked about the data on that a little bit. Players that disappoint a little bit in the last year, it's not the biggest red flag. In fact, it actually might be a good arbitrage buy low opportunity. And not that this always matters, but if you said last year at this time, hey, the Chiefs are going to get Peter Woods at 29, you'd say that's wild, that's crazy. And I thought
that would be how we do it moment.
Right, he becomes good value in the late 20s or into the 30s to get Peter Woods here. So I like this move a lot for the Chiefs.
Opinions, I think he was generally quite a polarizing prospect, or is generally quite a polarizing prospect, and a lot of people were saying things like, man, I just don't see it with Peter Woods. I don't understand why he's being talked about as this top prospect at all. Like, I just can't get there at all. I mean, you turn on his tape, and I think it's pretty obvious. Like, the good plays are really good, and he does a lot, and he doesn't just have one way of winning. He wins in a variety of different ways, and all of them are pretty impressive. Now, is there negative attached to that? Sure. And did he get worse, in his final year? Also, sure. But I don't think it's that hard to look at him and be like, yeah, I get why you would hitch your wagon to this guy. He's got quick. He wins with his hands, and his ability to shed blocks is really, really good. He gets off people really quickly, despite being visibly pretty small with incredibly short arms and wingspan.
He does, yeah.
Like really, whatever it was, but 12th or lower percentile in both arm length and wingspan for a guy who's pretty short and stumpy. That's not a good combination, but he sheds people immediately. Like, he's able to get off contact, makes plays in the run game, makes plays as a pass rusher. I get it. Maybe his ceiling is potentially limited, but I think he'll be a good player.
High level for the Chiefs. They came in with 9 picks. They're down to 7 now, I assume, right? They gave up the extra 2. I don't think they got anything in exchange. It's a big draft for them, knowing, hey, they need this help on the defensive line. They couldn't get off the field on third down a lot of the time. They have got questions on offense.
Everyone was trying to give him an edge rusher, and instead they go interior.
Yeah, but again, I think there's room for him as next to Chris Jones, and then Chris Jones might not be there in a couple of years.
Right.
So that's the play for Kansas City. I like Woods here at 29. We'll see what they end up doing on the offense tomorrow. I think if the what ifs are so fun in these drafts, the same way we've played this whole game with Xavier Worthy and the Chiefs and the Bills and the whole thing. That right before this Chiefs pick, Omar Cooper Jr., who we love, like if he becomes a stud, are we going to be looking back at, well, that could have been Patrick Mahomes' guy? Those are fun what ifs. I also think Denzel Boston would be a great fit for the Chiefs. Obviously, they passed on both of those guys to take Woods.
Well, 2 what ifs. If Omar Cooper Jr. becomes a stud, and also if Rashee Rice gets himself into trouble again,
true.
Like, that would have been an immediate, he could come in and be Rashee Rice for you, or you stick with Rashee Rice. You're like, let's roll the dice with this guy again. He does something else, and now you're like,
Or you could say the same thing about Jordyn Tyson, who goes at 8.
Sure.
If you're at 9 and you're going to trade up, should it have been for the receiver instead of the corner? So I love the what ifs and the counterfactuals that we'll never know, other than, hey, what if?
Yeah.
All right, pick 7. Washington Commanders go Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. We figured they'd go defensive side of the ball here. This is where, as we're going through the draft, we gave Ruben Bain to Washington a bunch and into the Saints, and Bain ends up going much later. but they go with the linebacker here in Washington.
Yeah, it's funny, like the sort of the draft process arcs of where guys are supposed to go, the grinding the mocks charts of where players are supposed to go. Like pre-combine, Sonny Styles was sort of 10 to 15 range. We were giving it to Tampa Bay a lot, to Dallas, to blah, blah, blah. I don't think, and then post-draft it was like, he's going top 5. Like this guy's gone, right? Yeah. He's becoming flavor of the month. He never he seemed to be below Washington and then above Washington, but nobody ever seemed to quite connect him with Washington, which is where he ended up going. Just kind of the funny quirk of the process.
So we've got Sonny Styles, tested unbelievably, good, solid football player. I think he's got great range and coverage. Wasn't as good in one-on-one situations, but as a zone defender, works downhill. I think he's one of the few linebackers that has a pretty good feel. Like when you're watching linebacker tape, it is so tough to have a feel for routes coming in behind you. It's like the weakness for every linebacker because offenses are trying to make you wrong every single time. I think one of the few linebackers that has a feel for that, Sonny Styles, just general zone awareness. He's pretty good against the run. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's a generational linebacker prospect or anything like that, but he's good all around and still young at the position.
Generational physical specimen. I mean,
certainly is.
Athletic, size. He's built in a lab in terms of what you would want, a classic off-the-ball linebacker to look like. And is, young at the position because he was a former safety. Talking about Isaiah Simmons, like guys out of position in terms of body size, like they went, you know what, you're not a safety either. It's time to play linebacker.
You've outgrown it.
They at least made the move before he made it to the NFL. But yeah, so he's, it's not like this guy's been playing linebacker the whole way and therefore should know everything. I mean, he's still growing into this position and is already really good at it.
And then I mentioned on the live show the one-on-one rep that he had in the college football playoff in 2024 against a draft pick, Texas right tackle Cameron Williams. He did show the pass rush ability, dipping the edge.
I do think that's an interesting element to him. Yeah, like everyone's been focusing on Arvell Reese and this hybrid ability, and could he rush the passer? If anything, Sonny Styles is closer to a conventional edge rushing body type than Arvell Reese is.
Dan Quinn.
And he goes to Dan Quinn, who's got experience doing that with multiple different players.
We love doing this. Now, we did this with Devin Lloyd a few years ago. It never materialized. He was a linebacker with good pass.
Yeah, I'm not saying skills. They will. I'm just saying it's interesting. We're not talking about that. Nobody is.
It's a good third element to his game. I think he is a good 3-down linebacker because of his coverage ability, his range, his athleticism, but all the way also his ability to blitz and make an impact rushing the passer as well.
A really underrated part of Ohio State's defense, I think, is tackling. That group, all of them are great tacklers. Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, those guys are all really good tacklers, fundamentally sound tacklers that don't just, fall face first at a guy's knees. They're all trying to wrap, they break down, they don't get completely out of control. They're all good tacklers. And if you're 6'5", 250 with incredibly long arms and a wingspan and are able to move, and you're a sound fundamental tackler, you're a difficult guy to get by.
Iron Will drops a comment in here. He wants to correct us that the Arizona run game, they do have Elijah Wilkinson coming in at right tackle. Did a nice job.
Didn't I mention him?
But he's saying that he did a nice job in the good run block grade from the artist formerly known as PFF in their zone-heavy scheme.
Right.
That maybe that adding Mauigoa wouldn't have helped their run game, that they're good with Jeremiyah Love.
I mean, look, somebody else said that somebody said it and you agreed that Mauigoa would have made a bigger difference to their run game than Jeremiyah Love.
Are you blaming me? Oh, okay.
I agree. I didn't commit either way on that. I'm just saying you and somebody else in the chat said that. I didn't commit either. I think that could go either way.
Also, for the record, I don't love the idea of taking Mauigoa at 3. So
my point would simply be that the 3 center, right guard, and right tackle, whoever they're going to be, right? I don't know that you can look at that group and be confident that they're good enough that Jeremiyah Love makes sense. Now, the problem is, again, if you got past 1 on the flow chart, I think he says yes to every other aspect of it. So maybe my thing with the flow chart is just broken by this draft where every other aspect goes the other way. So maybe you just say, what the hell, to step 1 in the flow chart, right?
It doesn't matter. Just grab the best players and get out of here.
I mean, I made this joke about Josh Norris, and he's like, who really cares about accuracy? It's like, if you live long enough to become the villain, right? Like I've gone from never draft a running back in the first round to all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell, 3 overall, why not?
We're just as you get
can't
older,
find a better option. So what the hell?
As you get older, you find out you just don't want to be on old takes exposed.
Yeah,
that's all.
Again, I still don't think I would have done it, but this is as close as I can come to a sound argument for it at 3. I get it. I don't hate it.
All right. Mickey Loomis made a pick at 8, and then there were 5 picks traded. The next 5 picks were involved in trades after Mickey. Mickey didn't trade up.
He held firm.
At pick 8, Jordyn Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State, is the selection for the New Orleans Saints. They had a weapon to sit next to Chris Olave for Tyler Shock.
Yes.
So,
a guy that can complement Chris Olave and maybe, succeed him if they decide Chris Olave's concussion history or whatever is too scary to re-up with a big money deal long term. Tyson's been a fascinating prospect this draft because somewhere along the line he was wide receiver 1, and then it was like, oh man, I don't know. The injuries, is he really that tough, blah, blah, blah. And then you look again at his grinding the mocks chart, and he's sliding. And then he works out at his pro day, and it's like, oh, no, he's going in the top 5. Don't even worry about it. He's wide receiver 1. And okay, he doesn't make it 5, but goes to the Saints. I get it. He's twitchier than Carnell Tate. He's got that sort of. You said he sort of reminds you a bit of Odell Beckham Jr., the way he ran routes. He also reminds me actually a bit of Stevie Johnson, the way he ran. And actually some similarities in terms of like it takes him a little longer than you would want sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a little bit too much, sometimes maybe. But he's so sudden. He's so twitchy. He's such a smooth mover. Or not a smooth mover, but like a sudden, incredibly dynamic mover. It's really difficult to kind of stick with him. And he's got his highlight reel is spectacular, right? There's a touch of the, whether it's Stevie Johnson, whether it's a Brandon Lloyd as well, had a bit of this as well. Like the high end stuff is absurd.
So yeah, I think he's just got that moves differently about him. He's missed a lot of time injury wise. I think that's still a concern. Interested to see how confident the Saints are coming out of that, but. He just moves really well. I know he's wide receiver 1 for a lot of people. You and I both preferred Tate, but I get it. Like I get Tyson, a guy that size, moving the way he does, dynamic, both route running and after the catch, with the ball in his hands, does a lot of nice things. And he's the guy at 8.
Yep.
And now, so Olave's got his concussion history with the Saints, and now Tyson with his injuries, and Shuck's like 26 now already in year
with an injury history.
Yeah, with an injury history. The Saints are just in a fascinating spot here.
You'd want to have a good doctor on staff.
I'm curious how much. I mean, with the Olave thing, that's more happened in the NFL, but in the last 2 years, they've taken Shuck and they've taken now Tyson with this injury history. And said, all right, we'll kind of roll with it, right? So it's going to be interesting these next couple of years because I think the Saints are on the upswing. I think they've added a lot more talent on the defensive side of the ball the last couple of years. The last 2 years, they've drafted 2 starting tackles. Now they added a QB and a receiver over the last couple of years as well. So they're out of the cap hell, right? They've got a lot more flexibility now. So the Saints are on the upswing, and Tyson could be a home run. If he stays healthy here.
I think he's a good player. There's a few sort of things that gnaw at me a little bit in terms of the negatives list. Like he's got that late stage Isaac Bruce stuff where he'll just catch the ball and fall over onto the floor rather than take a hit. Like he's not just he just bails, right? He's like, the play's over. Including times where you needed the 2 yards, like it's 3rd and 4 or whatever, and he'll just hit the ground after 2 yards. It's like, dude. I mean, sometimes
there's
you got
a lot to like, and he leaves you wanted just a bit more.
In a lot of ways, right? In that way, I think he gets stuck on contact more than a Carnell Tate. We talked about how Carnell Tate's so good at avoiding. You can't get hands on him. He's really good at stopping you do that. Jordyn Tyson, you can get your hands on him. Now, sometimes he's so twitchy and so elusive that he can get away from you. But if you get your hands on him, he will let you sort of stick on the way that Carnell Tate doesn't. Sometimes the ball skills are not, what they were, plus, of course, the injury history. So there's a few things that you sort of stack together. This is why I think that Carnell Tate is like reasonably comfortably wide receiver 1 because you just don't have the concerns. Tyson might have a higher ceiling than Carnell Tate, but I think there's 3 or 4 things that scare you about him in a way that you're not with Tate.
All right, man. So let's go. These next few picks were all traded. This one was the tail end of the Chiefs trade. The Browns went from 6 to 9. At 9, they take Spencer Fano. As soon as that happened, we theorized, hey, if that was the guy that they really wanted at 6 and they were going to get him at 9 and they picked up an extra 3 and a 5, love this again for the Browns. Back-to-back years, I've really enjoyed their trades down. So Fano, top tackle on the board for me. He'll plug and play either at left or right tackle for them. We'll see what they end up trying to do here, but I think he's the top player at that position, and the Browns filled a big need and picked up a couple extra picks.
Yeah, the Browns get ridiculed a lot, including sometimes by me. But I actually, between last year and then the first round this year, I love their process, right? Like the only question,
as I've said, most Deshaun Watson, Andrew Berry moves are pretty strong. Yeah. It's just when you suck the salary cap and the draft capital dry with one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, it's really tough to overcome.
When he's not making the worst move in NFL history, he's making good moves.
Yes.
Yeah, look, the only quibble really with last year's draft was, okay, the players we really like, but they're almost all at positions that were not needs and not particularly, the linebacker, running backs, blah, 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 whereas they had some other needs they might have addressed. That was your only real quibble. But otherwise, I think last year's process was really good. Then they got unlucky in terms of all the quarterbacks that were supposed to be there this year were crap in college football, so they went back or didn't materialize. But, everybody in the world was giving them a tackle or wide receiver, and we were like, well, I would take Carnell Tate at 6 and then come back for the tackles because they're not really worth that high-end pick. Well, they didn't have that available to them because Carnell Tate went at 4, and if they saw it the same way, well, then let's trade down. Let's take a tackle at 9 instead of 6, and then we can still get a wide receiver later. And Spencer Fano, I think, is arguably the best offensive lineman in this draft, whether you see him as a tackle or a guard. His arms are 32 7/8 inches, which is below the threshold that some people want, the 33-inch threshold, but only by 1/8 of an inch. I honestly think he could play any of the 5 offensive line positions well for them. So whether they want to plug and play him at left tackle, whether they want to move him in, like if they realize sooner rather than later that Zion Johnson isn't good, maybe they play him at guard, right? He'll play somewhere for this team and make the offensive line better.
It's like the Titus Howard thing. I always forget which position he's better at,
right.
Guard or tackle. So if they need Titus Howard to play right tackle and they have to put Fano at left tackle and then DeJuan Jones goes back to being swing tackle, they've got some options now for a team that just a couple months ago had 0 starting offensive line.
My assumption would be the position of most acute need is left tackle, therefore he starts at left tackle until we see otherwise. But theoretically, the worst offensive lineman you find in training camp, Fano can be better than.
And by the way, the short arm thing that we've talked about so much on this show, and I know
everybody in this draft has short arms. What's the deal?
Over the last 2 years, Will Campbell last year, the Ruben Bain stuff this year, Fano, I blame the combine because Fano was, 12% better at his pro day, whatever. But the other right tackles that have overcome that and been good the last couple of years, Luke Gedeke with the Tampa Bay Bucks, Braden Smith with the Indianapolis Colts. It's not this insurmountable thing.
I mean,
that you have to be really good otherwise. And Fano is a great technician. He's got unbelievable athleticism. He has the technique to overcome and to become a good tackle in this league.
His
in
arms,
the National Football League.
His arms are 1/8 of an inch shorter than Rashawn Slater's, right? Who's a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle, and Dante Scarnecchia has made this point before, like Hall of Fame caliber Patriots offensive line coach for years. Like, are you telling me that 1/8 of an inch is the difference between this guy being able to play or not? Like, obviously not, right? Now, it's good to have thresholds and discuss, whether a guy generally is an outlier or whatever, but if his arms were 1/8 of an inch longer, we'd be like, he meets the threshold, he's really good, he's our left tackle, right? You shouldn't go from that to nope, he's a guard based off 1/8 of an inch. He can play. And I think, again, one of the things that makes you feel better about a guy that's an outlier in one of these physical areas is if you can see an area on tape where he's already offsetting that, right? Like he's doing something already, whether taught or naturally, that stops it being a problem, right? With some offensive linemen, you can see the footwork, right? And it's like, dude, it doesn't matter if he's short, stumpy arms. He's always in your way. His feet are so good, he's always between you and the quarterback. With Fano, the thing that he does amazingly well is he's got this great ability to like flash his hands, to throw feints at defensive linemen and get them to commit and then block them, right? So he'll flash his hands, the defensive lineman will come in with a swipe or whatever, and then he'll go and block him. And like at that point, it doesn't matter that his arms are shorter than the defensive ends. He's come in after the guy's committed to his move, and now he's just latched on and he's able to offset it. So he's already showing you how he wins with the shorter arms than other guys.
All right, and then the other Browns pick, KC Concepcion at 24. So they go wide receiver from Texas A&M. That also completes the Travis Hunter trade down from last year. So you start to add that up. It was, they trade down, still
Which
get
again
Mason
looks
Graham.
like really good process.
Yeah, still get Mason Graham. You get Quinshon Judkins. You get KC Concepcion. Was there another player in there? They exchanged some other late round picks. So that's the 3-for-1 play. Like you give up one Travis Hunter for 3 starters, basically. And Concepcion has as much upside as any receiver in this draft.
He really does. I didn't realize I'd written it down this succinctly anywhere in my notes, but best separator in the class, but some of the worst ball skills. Pretty much sums him up, right?
Yeah.
Now, and the thing is, though, his ball skills are not so bad that you're immediately out, right? Like there are players where you look at them and say, that dude just can't catch. I'm not drafting him. I don't want him, right? Like it's disqualifyingly bad, right? His aren't that bad. They're borderline, but the borderline can go either way. You could either be in a situation you're like, man, this is more hassle than it's worth. And Jerry Jeudy's kind of that guy, right? Like Jerry Jeudy still separates really well, but the dude misses a lot of plays. So maybe he's another one of those guys, and that wouldn't feel good. The Browns already have a Jerry Jeudy. Do they want a second one? But maybe it goes the other way. And maybe, like 1 year he'll have a bad drop rate, or maybe he's always going to drop a couple more than you would want. But like overall, the dude's the best separator in the class, so it's way worth it, right? I think he's a fascinating prospect because he's fluid, fast, smooth moving. He roasts even good cornerbacks. Like his tape is awesome. His great run after the catch. He had multiple punt return touchdowns this season, so there's value add as a return guy as well. Way back, NC State, was that where he was at before? They were giving him like Deebo Samuel backfield carries, and he was doing really well at that as well. Like he's bigger than you think he is as well. Like 6 foot, almost 200 pounds. He's got some sort of heft to him as well. There's a lot to like, but the ball skills do worry me.
Yeah, and it's not just straight up drops. I mean, his contested catch rate was reasonable, but there's just a few other off-target throws. I don't think the catch radius isn't always there, but you get it. Like I get the athleticism, and back into the first, I think it makes a lot of sense. End of the day for the Browns, they picked up a 3 and a 5. We assumed they were going tackle, receiver, tackle. This is the combo, Fano. And KC Concepcion.
And if you'd said that, Carnell Tate and whoever was a sort of popular combination. I mean, Fano and Concepcion is a pretty good, even if you're just doing the gaming, the pre-draft, tackle, wide receiver, tackle, that's about as good as you're going to get. Plus, they traded back. So they got tackle, receiver, the 2 names they got, plus they added draft picks.
All right, the trades continued. We'll hear about them in just a second. First from FanDuel. Oh, am I supposed to do it? Oh, we have the pre-record. I thought we had the pre-record. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $250 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. From player props on your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up. FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, matchups all in one place and make your picks with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/33rd to get started. FanDuel, play your game. 21 plus in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org. Call 800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York, or call 1-877-770-7867 in Louisiana. Always just fascinated by this. We've been away from PFF for a year and a half now, and someone went looking for us at PFF and found us here.
God bless
tonight, a year and a half later.
Yeah.
Like,
See, by the way,
if you loved us that much, where did you think we went for a year and a half?
I do wonder that, like,
It's fine if you don't.
Absolutely. But I do want, it is kind of fascinating to me. The guys are like, man, I didn't know you'd gone from PFF, and here you are. It's like, where did you think we were the last two? Anyway, it's fascinating. We lose the ties, and we become an instant professional shambles again. It's like apparently the ties are the only thing holding us together from professionalism.
And then I also didn't realize we down. I'm wearing my quarter zip on the FanDuel ad, the pre-recorded.
Right, that's continuity problem. Yeah,
big continuity problem. But here we are, scratching the surface
again.
The Dallas Cowboys traded up from 12 to 11, secured one spot up to secure Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State, the defensive playmaker that the Cowboys wanted, and then they traded down later in the first round and get Malachi Lawrence, UCF edge rusher. So I think at the end of the day, I don't know what the exact picks were.
Right, what did it net out as? Yeah.
They netted out the same number of picks.
Right.
They traded up one spot. They traded down 3 spots. The second trade was really interesting because they traded in the division with the Philadelphia Eagles, who get Makai Lemon. There's a whole story around him, which we'll get when we talk Eagles. But what are your thoughts on the Cowboys, Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence here?
I think Caleb Downs is one of the steals of the draft. I think the two cleanest, best players in this draft were Jeremiyah Love and Caleb Downs. And in a down year for elite blue chip talent, it's not that I'm surprised Caleb Downs slid this far, but I think it ends up being great value because he's just so good. Again, I think people overthought the Caleb Downs thing consistently. Like, this guy had been talked about as being basically the best player in the nation for his entire college career, did it at multiple blue blood programs, did it at multiple safety positions. One was way more of a deep safety, one was closer to the line of scrimmage. And he's just awesome at everything. Like, his pros list is yay long. His concerns are like, maybe he's not, built like Kyle Hamilton, and that's basically it. But he's an awesome football player, in addition to being a great leader and extremely smart and able to get everyone on the defense lined up together. You can never speak in absolutes because things go differently than you think they would, but this feels like an absolute home run hit.
It's a really nice difference in the two picks, too, because Caleb Downs is just a good, pure football player who didn't have the testing numbers and doesn't have that piece of it maybe ticked as far as, like, we know he's a great athlete other than what you see on film. And then Malachi Lawrence is like your perceived upside edge rusher, right? But with Downs, we all agreed all the way along the process, Brian Branch type. The comps that we've used as far as production goes, Brian Branch, Antoine Winfield, Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James. I mean, he's in that bucket of what we think he's going to become as a player. Maybe not the same role, maybe not the same size or skill set, but wherever they deploy him, I think when he's covering the slot, when he's covering tight ends, when he's playing in the box, when he's playing deep, like, he could do it all. The question for Downs, with 3 years of production across Bama and Ohio State, the game athleticism testing numbers across multiple companies are like, man, we don't have a lot of great straight line speed numbers on him. We don't have great athleticism numbers, and he didn't test. Yeah. Now, of all it's like positions I care the least about that. It's like kicker, punter, safety, speed. Yeah. Safety's right there, right? I care the least about speed. It's nice when you have it and you're a good football player, like Dillon Thieneman. It's nice that he runs in the 4.3s because it shows up. It's a big part of his game. But I'm watching Downs, and I'm like, man, he's agile in his eyes. Like, he's going to be in position, and I don't see first off, I don't see a lack of speed, and I don't see it being an issue.
That's the thing. It's like, okay, let's say for a minute that the in-game athleticism stuff, the computer vision, however teams are doing it, the computer tracking stuff, let's say that's legit, and he's just an average athlete. Okay, my next question would be, show me the plays where it's a problem, right? Like, okay, I'll take that, right? I will accept that the tracking data and the computers are smarter than my eyes, right? They're better than that. That's why we have this stuff. So show me the plays where it became a problem and he gave up because, there were big plays against him because of it. And I don't think they're really there. Now, obviously there's a play or two, but it's not a problem on his tape, right? You're not looking at this and saying, man, there's a play where he's too slow. There's a play where he doesn't read it fast enough. There's a play. So Ed Reed is the guy that always came up as kind of funny because, Caleb Downs is, you'll see, Twitter is full of these like crazy haters, right, or take everything too extreme. It's like he's small, slow, and undersized, right? It's like, okay, he's the same height and weight as Ed Reed, and Ed Reed ran a 4.57 40, so he's probably faster than him too, right? Yeah. And Ed Reed, when you watch his tape, is full of stuff where he like comes from nowhere, from the other side of the field, and makes an insane read and picks off Peyton Manning, right? That's like he didn't do that because he ran a 4.3. He did that because in his head, he's 3 steps ahead of anybody else. That's what Caleb Downs is, right? His trigger is awesome. He reads it fast. He trusts his eyes, and he drives, and he gets there before you did because he set off before you did. It doesn't matter if he only runs a 4.5, and he might not, by the way. Maybe he runs a 4.4. We just never got a number on it. But let's say he runs a 4.5. It doesn't matter because he sets off running before you did. So all the stuff where that could conceivably be a problem, he shows you on his tape he's awesome at it. So I just think this guy is arguably the best football player in the draft, and the Cowboys got him at 11 because he's a safety.
Shout out to Dane Brugler and the Beast, as always. I just want to go through some of his off-field positives because Dane's the best at accumulating.
Yeah, have you found those now rather than asking me to find them on the fly?
I thought you had his profile.
I had it open, but it's like small type and there's a lot of bullet points.
I thought you also knew the pattern. It's usually toward the end.
Oh, no, I didn't know.
But his start in the middle of all of his bullet points. Balances high-level intelligence with disciplined decision-making, veteran-level communication skills.
Yeah.
Elite competitive toughness, voted one of 4 team captains. Teammates praised his all-business attitude toward practice and meetings, and NFL Scout says our coaches are going to love him because he's a process guy. How he prepares influences how he plays. I mean, and then I've heard Dane on other shows talk about he is absolute difference maker when it comes to the off-field and the leadership and the whole deal. Mm-hmm. Feels like an important thing for Dallas and their defense. And then to get Malachi Lawrence on the other end. And look, we're all going to keep talking about the Micah Parsons. Go ahead.
By the way, he's got so many positives, right, in every profile that the bloodlines thing doesn't even come up. The fact that his brother's also a really good NFL player already and he's the bigger brother, right? Like normally for a prospect, that would be like one of the top 2 things you heard about him. By the way, his brother is an awesome player and he's bigger and stronger and faster than his brother, right? Like that would be the leadoff hit for a lot of these guys. It's barely even in Caleb Downs' profiles anywhere because he's got 50 other things he's good at.
Because everything else is so good. And then the Dallas defensive line, man. It's going to be fun. It's like the Moneyball. People think that Moneyball, because of the line, we're just going to replace him in the aggregate. They think that's what Moneyball is. Like we're going to Moneyball this thing.
That's what I think it is. Yeah.
Just replace stuff in the aggregate.
I saw the movie. It sold me.
That's all Moneyball is replace use the aggregate.
You're still trying to replace Giambi. Can't do it.
So Jerry's out there. He's like, President Clinton's coming in, and we're just going to and then after
You're still trying to replace Micah. Can't do it. What we might be able
Jerry
to do is
says,
recreate him in the aggregate.
Recreate him in the aggregate. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fire a 4 over the Packers, get Rashawn Gary in here. We used a 2 on Ezeraku last year. We're going to use our second 1 on Malachi Lawrence.
Put them all together.
Quinnen Williams is coming in. The aggregate is there for Dallas. This is a fascinating – we're just joking around a little bit, but it's a fascinating group of defensive linemen that they have here. Kenny Clark coming in, of course, in that trade. Quinnen Williams at defensive tackle. And now the defensive ends are Ezeraku, Gary, and Malachi Lawrence. And again, Lawrence, this is a nice place for him to fit in, where Ezeraku, I think, is a good early down run defender, and he can rush the passer. And Lawrence might just be a pass rusher only right now. Gary could play the run. They've got some options up there. I don't know if it all adds up to one Micah Parsons, but it's not like they were weak up front last year. And I think they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, again, these decision-making sequences from teams are always kind of fascinating to me because I don't think you can just take each move in isolation. I think you have to look at the broader picture of what the plan is. I mean, if you ask me, trading away Micah, just not getting a Micah Parsons contract done because you're the Dallas Cowboys, and despite Ian Rappaport's insistence that they tend to get out ahead of these deals, actually what they tend to do is drag ass and make them into problems. I think that was a bad way of doing things. I would have just locked up Micah Parsons and kept one of the best defensive players in the game and given him a monster payday and, moved on with my life. Instead, the Dallas Cowboys drag it out. They burn the bridge. They end up trading him away. Once you've done that, what they've done is good. right?
Yes.
Now, the problem is I think the first thing they did was stupid, and I would have done something different. But once you've burned that bridge, they've put the bridge back together pretty well. It's kind of like the Giants with Dexter Lawrence, right? Once you've set fire to the bridge, getting the 10th overall pick back for it is really good work. But, I wouldn't have poured gas on the bridge and thrown a match on it, right? Like, you don't need to do that. So I like what Dallas has done. Malachi Lawrence is a really interesting pick because, number one, he was talked about as maybe he could sneak into the first round. I mean, he went comfortably into the first round. And then number two, he's this riser that's come up through the Shrine Bowl, a Renner find.
Yeah.
And he's, twitchy. He blew the doors off the combine. He's got, elite pass rush moves. I wonder if he's got the kind of the run defense and the power to be the player that they believe he is with where they've drafted him. That would be my concern. But overall, I think it's a nice pick.
Our friend John Ledyard loves him. Our edge rankings, we had John on here. We've got the explosiveness, his ability, to challenge the edge and win in a few different ways. Maybe not as good of an all-around player, and only 1,300 snaps. The one-year breakout, you've got that question as well. So there's a few buts to his game, as I always like to say, but love the upside here for Lawrence.
Before we get off the Cowboys, can I just read you the last line of Dane Brugler's The Beast on entry of Caleb Downs?
Yes, of course.
Because it's a good thing of summing him up. Overall, Downs sees the field like a chessboard and plays with an exceptional combination of intelligence, urgency, and toughness, allowing him to be disruptive from anywhere on the field. His intangibles and on-field versatility will make him an impactful NFL starter early in his career. I mean, you are literally just talking about an awesome football player. No matter where you put him, no matter how you deploy him, don't overthink it. Just draft the awesome football player.
In Dallas, by the way, moving up one pick to secure him, I'm always interested on why you move up one pick, because clearly the Dolphins weren't like, we were going to pick him.
Right.
Do you have that communication? Was the fear, who was the fear that someone was coming up? Was it Tampa?
Yeah.
Is it the Rams seemed hell-bent on Ty Simpson?
Right.
The Ravens, I think they're not drafted another safety. Was it the Bucs at 15? Was it the Jets at 16? Who do you think is coming up to leapfrog you that you have to move up one pick? I'm always fascinated by those stories. Or if you're just just get it over with. I just got to get this guy in the building.
I feel I feel like it's nervousness.
Yeah.
Right? Like you just don't want to miss out on your guy.
It's a bit of a panic.
You're so close.
You just throw two picks at him. Let's make it happen.
Because the Vikings did this with J.J. McCarthy, right? It's like you had the discipline to wait him out, and he gets there at 10, and then you're like, we got to jump one spot. Can't lose him. I feel like that's what happens is they get just there, and then they're like, just make it happen. Just secure it rather than run the risk.
Anyway, Dallas with the two defensive players. One is maybe the best pure football player in the draft. One is a high upside pass rusher.
Yeah.
Interesting dichotomy of the two players there. Kadyn Proctor is the next pick for the Miami Dolphins. So nice process by the Dolphins, I'd say, trading down, getting the extra couple picks, getting Kadyn Proctor at 12. He's a bit of a polarizing player, an absolute monster at 350-plus pounds, moves well. They fed him bubble screens, inconsistent tape. But I get it. The power and the high-end plays are absolutely there. I describe him I was really down on Tyler Guyton a couple years ago, the old Cowboys tackle, but I said his best plays are incredible. Proctor, I think, is better than that, but his good plays, you get it, and you hear what Saban was saying, and there's a lot, if you can keep him on track, and what Duke Manyweather's saying, Duke works with him, and I think there's this idea of if you keep him on track.
Yeah.
This is a guy that was supposed to go top 5 a couple years ago, and I think the Dolphins and other people still think that's in him, and that it's in the range of outcomes here.
Yeah, I mean, look, those are red flags. The repeated if you can keep him, together, not a self-starter was one of the things that Saban said about him. He's like, he'll do everything you ask him to do, but he'll probably show up out of weight or overweight, and he's not a self-starter. And those are not encouraging things to hear. I also don't love pairing that with South Beach. That doesn't feel great either. However, and look, I had a lot of negatives in my notes when I was going through his tape. However, a lot of those offset if we're talking about him as a guard. I wouldn't play him at tackle. I did not like his tackle tape. I thought his negatives were too problematic at tackle. I thought he got beaten too cleanly for a dude that big, strong, and fast and athletic. But you move him into guard. I mean, he's a monster. He's 6'7", 350. His footwork is fantastic. He's got the athleticism and the fluidity to play inside a guard and make any block you want him to, and the power to move people when he does it. And inside, you really do mitigate the amount of space he has to get out of lose control of himself and whiff, basically. So I really like him inside a guard. Did we get any kind of clarification on this one? I assume they're playing him at guard right away as opposed to challenging.
See what Bobby's got on.
That's true. As opposed to challenging Austin Jackson.
So Austin Jackson's got one more year at right tackle, contract-wise. Jamari Sawyer comes in to potentially compete at right guard. It's another one of those he could play guard for a year, then kick out to tackle. They'll let Jackson walk. We'll see what ends up happening. He played left tackle in college. They've got Patrick Paul there. I thought his film got better as the year went on. He got smoked week 1 by Florida State. If you were just watching prospects at the time, this guy's projected to go top 10. Let's watch him week 1 against Florida State. He gives up 5 or 6 pressures, gets whooped by speed rushers, and it's like he can't do this. But I think he got better with his pass sets and everything. And when he's just got so much strength when he locks it in, backside his zone and everything. When he locks it in, he can do some damage in the run game. So it's a bit of a polarizing player. Again, some people think he's a guard, some people think he's a tackle. Every time you mention Kadyn Proctor's name, chat's already doing it. You mention every previous. Is he Andre Smith? DJ Fluker 2.0. Jonah Williams is the only guy that he's not comped to just because Jonah was like a different style player. But you got Cam Robinson, you've got J.C. Latham. Like, name your Bama tackles. All of those guys either went in the first or second round or were talked about going really high.
And it's not a great list.
And overall disappointed, right? What do you do with that? I hate the same school scouting. Did they get bumped up artificially? What happened there? So I think that's one of the things Proctor's battling against is like a decade of Bama tackles who have ultimately disappointed in the NFL.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not a great list results-wise. The Saban stuff also scares me. It really does. Like, look, at some point in the NFL, you're going to need to be a self-starter, right? Everybody else is, and if you're not, you're behind the 8 ball. And if you're going to show up to camp every time 20 pounds overweight and have to spend the first month, working your way back into shape, that's not helpful for your development. And then, so Andre Smith, remember the year the Bengals drafted Andre Smith, and he held out, right? And that was the year they were on Hard Knocks. And one of the first scenes when he finally got signed and arrived, he rocks up, and Mike Brown is just like, I basically called him a fat guy to his face. I forget the exact wording, but Mike was basically like, man, you're kind of fat and out of shape, huh? You got to work on that. And it was like, whoa. I mean, initially it was like, wow, that's sort of billionaire privilege right there, being able to call a guy just a fat dude to his face. However,
chat's just mentioning every big Leonard Davis 2.0. They're just mentioning every player.
He ended up basically being right. I mean, Andre Smith, had he not been such a fat dude who, didn't work out when he was waiting for
some good years though, didn't he?
Yeah, but
a couple good years.
Ultimately, I think Mike Brown, the fact that Andre Smith did not appear to be a self-starter maybe worked against him.
All right, so that was what the Dolphins did at 12. They moved down one spot, picked up a couple extra picks. They moved up. I love the teams that moved down and up in the same round. Both the Cowboys and Dolphins did that. Dolphins moved up to 27 to take San Diego State cornerback Chris Johnson. He ends up being the second corner off the board. If you're a Chiefs fan I saw some Chiefs fans upset about the Delane thing, and we love Delane. The argument against the trade up was like, man, there's no other corners going here. It's either for or against. Like, it's either a top-heavy class or would you have been happy with a Chris Johnson later in the first? But Chris Johnson's really good player. I know we both liked him across this entire process here.
Yeah, the corner group became very interesting when McCoy's knee became a thing, right? And when it's like all of a sudden it went from being maybe 2 elite corners at the top of the class to actually Mansoor Delane appears to be number 1 by a mile. And then it's like, do you prefer Chris Johnson, D'Angelo Pons, Brandon Cisse, Avion Terrell, like whoever it is you like lower on, and Chris Johnson ends up being the guy. I think because, again, it's like what are you scared of? Like, what's the red flag? Johnson doesn't really have one other than the fact that he was at San Diego State the whole way in his career. It's a bit like of the one-year wonder thing. And then also, but if that's the thing that scared you, man, who did he face? Who did he play? Strength of competition. You answer that to a large degree by going to the Senior Bowl, right, and spending a week practicing against all-star level competition where he looked really good, right? Like his Senior Bowl, I thought he certainly looked like he belonged, and if anything, was impressive during the week.
I was impressed with overall footwork, some of his patience, his ability to play in off coverage. had some big splash plays in there as well, and he tackled, man. I love the way he came up and just ran through people and ran his feet through contact on short passes and everything. And look, the Dolphins have a million different needs. We started this whole process slotting corners in there left and right. They trade Jalen Waddle. Now they need receivers. I mean, they still have to sort those things out. We also predicted, because it's John Eric Sullivan, former Packers regime, they're probably not done at corner. They'll double up at that position, I would think, and they'll probably get 2 or 3 receivers in this next wave. They have, 5 more picks in the top 100 as of right now. So there's still a lot more to do for Miami. I'm back and forth on the Proctor thing. I see both sides of it. I was talking to another team in the middle of the first round today. It's like, what do you think of Proctor? I'm like, I get both sides. Like, I get both sides of it. Probably wouldn't be my pick, but I get it. But I really love the Chris Johnson pick at 27.
I honestly like Proctor at guard. If you had told me that the plan is to start him at left tackle, I would say I'd be terrified of that. I'd say the guy loses way too much at left tackle. For a guy with his size, he's just getting whooped way more often than you want. However, inside, that power plays better. The speed and athleticism plays better inside. He won't lose as much inside. I like that pick as a guard inside. And then Chris Johnson just seems like the most solid pick they could have made at corner. I think it's a good pair of picks. And it's also a very Packers tree type of draft already, right? They've taken a tackle, they're kicking into guard. They've drafted one of the first of their multiple corners.
Just all guard tackle hybrids left and right. It is what they do. All right, the biggest surprise of round 1. Pick 13. The Los Angeles Rams take Ty Simpson.
Yeah.
There's already some controversy floating around from Twitter/X accounts that I don't trust. So I don't even know if I want to go there.
Yeah, there's just a video of McVay just sitting there. I mean, that's it.
I can't.
Somebody's using a video of McVay not looking over the moon in a 30-second clip to basically say that McVay didn't want Ty Simpson.
Are we playing it right now?
But he doesn't say anything. He just sits there while Les is talking and doesn't, beam with pride. Like, it's nothing to me.
Braden Fahoku, former NFL player who's got aggressive football takes.
Well, this is literally it. Like, he just sits there like that for the whole time, which to me means nothing.
It's also so Kelly sent these to me originally. It's her fault. And she sent one from ML. I need to tell her to block that.
Oh, not that football. That guy, that's bad account.
Block this account.
It's not as bad as Dove, but it's pretty close.
Block this account. But Sean, he's got a different clip of Sean answering questions and that he seems not happy through the process. So anyway, let's give our take on the situation. Jay Glazer breaks this thing while the Dolphins, the pick is in.
Having said yesterday that he's got some massive news that he's not going to tell anybody until later. Can't tell people yet, but I got something. I got something cooking.
Yeah. And so which
I hate, by
Jay
the way.
Glazer breaks this news in the middle of Dolphins pick is in. It wasn't announced, and it's like, wow, the Rams are drafting Ty Simpson. He prefaces it and says, hey, Sean McVay told Matthew Stafford about this. He's aware, and he told him it's for whenever you decide to move on. So no rush, Matthew.
No pressure.
Coming off your MVP season.
Yeah.
His best, I don't know if it was best overall season, but he was great this season. He's been really good with his Rams run. A couple, down seasons, but he's been really good. He had the back questions last year. He always feels like he might be 1 year away from retirement, but coming off of an outstanding year, and they draft Ty Simpson. So clearly, Les Snead at least loved him, despite the body language and everything. And here's why I won't read into any of that. I think they have a great working relationship. Les Snead and Sean McVay.
But having said that, presumably, it has to be with everybody, right? There will be times where they disagree, and Les Snead will have final say if and when that happens. Like, if there's ever I can't imagine a world where, they disagree, therefore they refuse to make, they just wouldn't draft that pick. Like, eventually they'll disagree to the degree where one of them just has to make a call, and Les Snead's the guy that gets to make the call. So it is conceivable that, Sean wouldn't have made this pick, Les would make the pick, and he gets to make the pick.
Yeah, the general manager's job is to think long-term.
Yes.
And coaches by nature think short-term.
Right.
And coaches by nature are like, I don't know where they had Makai Lemon on their board,
I mean,
but I'm
like,
sure I'm sure Sean McVay is like, what could I do with Makai Lemon?
It's like
what
the
could
Jordyn
I do
Love
with
pick,
this receiver?
Right? When the Packers drafted Jordyn Love, it's like, yeah, sure, this works out well for the succession plan. On the other hand, maybe you'd win a Super Bowl now if you just gave Aaron Rodgers a first-round wide receiver, right? Like that had to have been a conversation that was being had in that building at some point, right? It's entirely plausible that it was being had here as well, where McVay's like, dude, I want Makai Lemon will win a Super Bowl this year. And, Les is going, yeah, but what happens if Matthew Stafford's only got 1 year left?
Yeah. Look, I've criticized the Jordyn Love pick a few years ago, and I said never again. Over committing to the quarterback position, I don't think is ever a bad idea. Now, we talk a lot about thinking probabilistically here and everything. Like we're sitting here 3 or 4 years down the road. What are the actual odds that Ty Simpson's like a great next franchise quarterback for the Rams? It's low because it's low at the position. But I love the idea of doing it early. I love the idea of doing it. Now, look, I mean, Sean McVay's been a cheat code for multiple quarterbacks as well. He helped develop Jared Goff. He's gotten the most out of Matthew Stafford. So, if you're always a Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, is it always fine to get a quarterback in the building because you're good at developing quarterbacks? Maybe. But I think I'm good with this move. Now, if you're a Rams fan and you're sitting there with a unique position, being here in pick 13, and you could get Makai Lemon or Omar Cooper or someone that's not only going to help you in the short term, but also give you that wide receiver 2 to either pair with Puka Nacua or give you some Puka Nacua insurance. That's what we kept going to at receiver. But, man, I kind of love this move for the Rams because they're thinking of the future. It's not going to help them for this year.
Yeah.
They're willing to sacrifice that.
Well, first of all,
but they also have the best roster in the NFL right now, I believe.
Yes. First
and
of
they're
all,
able to do it.
I think it's the best possible landing spot for Ty Simpson. So from his perspective, this could not have gone any better. Like, number one, you're a first-round pick, so you got more money than you would have had if you were top of the second or whatever. Number two, you now get to learn at the feet of Sean McVay, an offensive mastermind, behind Matthew Stafford, a future Hall of Famer, presumably at this point. It could, and with no pressure to start anytime soon, because Stafford's going to play for at least one more year, maybe 2, maybe who knows how much longer. So and I think Ty Simpson, actually does need to sit. Like he's incredibly inexperienced. B, I think his accuracy problems are potentially disqualifying. But we know now with Josh Allen and some other players, like you can improve accuracy. Maybe it requires some long-term fixing of fundamentals or whatever, but you can do it. So it's the perfect landing spot for him. From the Rams' perspective, long-term, you do now have a successor to Matthew Stafford. They drafted Stetson Bennett. That probably wasn't going to be a long-term thing. We speculated that they, at some point they were going to need this. Where was it going to come from? And right at the start, when they had this 13th overall pick, that, by rights shouldn't have been theirs, right? It's the Falcons pick. The Rams are supposed to be picking at the bottom of the first round somewhere. All of a sudden, they've got this 13th overall pick. It's a gift. And you're like, well, that could be the quarterback that they're never going to have a shot at otherwise, right? And they're like, unfortunately, that guy isn't really there. Well, if you talk yourself into Ty Simpson as having that kind of potential, it makes sense as the landing spot here. The concern is just, it means you're sacrificing a player that could help right now, Makai Lemon or whatever, right? Or, we talked about offensive linemen. Their whole offensive line is going to need paying soon. Maybe you could have drafted, Ioane or whatever, right? Like you could have drafted an offensive lineman. So it does mean you're giving up something to do that. But otherwise, there's no downside to it. It's like if you believe there is power to what the Packers did with Jordyn Love, like there is virtue to teaching a guy from the sideline for like multiple years, then you can't hate this pick.
And you go back to the Packers move with Jordyn Love, and I think our us being against it was more about our evaluation of Jordyn Love, again, of
right.
which I've
huge. That was a big part of it. Yeah.
Right, and I've softened on the stance of like I don't think we are great overall as humans at evaluating the quarterback position at a high rate. So just take some shots, see what happens.
My objection to that was way more. I don't think Jordyn Love is the guy. I don't like the Packers drafting Aaron Rodgers' successor.
I'll tell you where we'll bring it up again, though. We're in the middle. They're going into the NFC Championship again, and Devontae Adams is banged up. Right, or the offensive line's missing a piece.
Sure.
Or they can't re-sign. They have 4 offensive linemen to re-sign.
Puka Nacua bites somebody.
Right. Puka just continues to act the way he's been acting. And so who knows?
Puka Suarez.
So, what if they had Makai Lemon? What if they had Vengi Ioane? What if they had another starter? When it happened with the Packers, remember they lost, was it 2 straight NFC? No, they lost an NFC championship to the Bucs and then lost in the divisional round to the 49ers. And you'd say, well, what if they had another receiver? And, they needed another piece. Were they one piece away? So you asked that question. Like, was it the right move for the Packers long term? Absolutely. They stayed competitive, and they have Jordan Love, and Love's still a very good quarterback. It ended up being the right move.
Yeah.
But, you have those questions about what else they could have gotten. And I'll have to watch more of Sean McVay to try to figure out his body language.
Psychoanalyze him.
Look, truly upset about
ultimately,
this.
I think he's going to buy in. Like, maybe, again, the worst case scenario is it's not the pick he would have made. He's kind of upset they didn't draft Makai Lemon. Who cares? Ultimately, it's not like it's not going to be a broken relationship from now on. It's like he'll be a little bit annoyed tonight, and then he'll find somebody he likes tomorrow, and all will be good with the world. And maybe it will work out. He'll realize the error of his ways if and when he turns Ty Simpson into a really good quarterback going forward, and he has his quarterback of the future. Now, the scary part is, I mentioned this during the live show. Josh Norris had brought it up. It actually came originally from that guy Lou Reeves on Twitter. Round 1 quarterbacks since the year 2000 with fewer than 600 career pass attempts. So he's got 15 starts, which is a very low number, which means fewer than 600 career pass attempts. And I said it is 5 athletic freak shows and Mark Sanchez, right? And now Ty Simpson.
I guessed a few of them before.
Actually, so those are the guys that had fewer than Ty Simpson's numbers. It was 5 5 athletic freak shows and Mark Sanchez. Those are Cam Newton, Mike Vick, Trey Lance, Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, and Mark Sanchez. You expand that list to just 600 or fewer career pass attempts, and you add in some quarterbacks, and they don't help his case. You add in Mac Jones. Okay, for a brief period that looked okay, and then wheels fell off.
Trubisky.
You add in Trubisky. You
Haskins.
add in, you add in Dwayne Haskins. You add in Akili Smith. You add in Carson Wentz. And you add in Alex Smith. Now, Alex Smith is probably your high watermark here, and that's not great. I mean, Cam Newton as well. But, like, the physical freak people are on their own thing. The point is, he's not a physical freak, so you can't use that part. Now you're looking at the people that are not physical freaks, and that's not a good list to be on.
I need to see the other side of it, though, because I don't even think –
What other side?
The hit rate on that is, Kyler's still kind of a hit. I think Kyler's a hit.
But the point is, everybody on that list that has become good is an athletic freak.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
If you're on the list and you're not an athletic freak, Alex Smith is the best player there.
And he was a runner in college.
And he was average in the NFL.
Yeah, he's and he can run.
So, like, if that's your ceiling for a Ty Simpson.
I got you. He's bucking the pass-first trend.
Yes.
Basically.
So it's like if you have no experience and you're not an athletic freak show, you're battling some really bad odds.
Look, it's what I love about the draft is every player's story is different. You try to use data. You try to use past precedent. You try to use projection. And, like, Ty Simpson's story is unique. 15 starts. He's still 23. Or he's already 23, only has 15 starts. The first 8 games were incredible. The last half of the season was terrible. There's some Sam Darnold to that, right? The highs and lows. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of buts to his game. But you also he's going to sit for a year or two.
That's the thing. So how many of those guys? Yeah, how many of those guys might have succeeded if they hadn't been thrown to the wolves immediately, right? Like all those guys started pretty much right away, right?
Cam started right away.
Mac Jones did. Keely Smith did. Forget the athletic freak shows. Alex Smith did, right?
Sanchez did, right?
Sanchez did. Trubisky did.
No, Trubisky, week 3. They had Mike Glennon
for like 3 weeks, yeah. So all these guys started basically right away. So, yeah, maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the key to unlock this is just don't start them right away.
Aggressive move by the Los Angeles Rams. Appreciate everybody being up here. Give us a quick word to talk about our friends over at Root Insurance. Quick break to talk about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage, but when Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors, and after a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, jump start, or lock your keys in the car, Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into roadside assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You get started today at Root.com. Change back into our suits to get back to the draft. We're not only at pick 13. We have covered several picks in the 20s.
Right, we've had some bonus ones.
We're going team by team more than pick by pick.
Yeah.
But the picks, we're starting with that. Okay, Wenga Ioane is the next pick at 14 for the Baltimore Ravens.
Just a reminder to everybody, just hit subscribe. We're at almost 80,000, but subscribe before we lose our minds.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody that's up here late with us. Hit subscribe, hit thumbs up. You just do all the stuff. Hit the hype buttons that they have now on the.
I don't think you do that with the live ones.
Not in live? Okay, hype after.
You should hype the everybody's favorite prospect video. That would be a good one.
Yeah, hype the prospect video. Yeah. That was fun. All right. Tomorrow night will be business cash, I would say. All right. Pick 14. Baltimore Ravens go Wenga Ioane. He'll be your plug-and-play starting guard for the Ravens.
Yeah.
People mover up front.
First kind of pure guard, I guess. That's another thing that makes the Kadyn Proctor pick interesting and maybe makes you question whether they're planning on keeping him a tackle. Like, if Ioane was on the board, did they just see him as a better guard than Ioane? I wonder if Ioane was seen as a little bit overrated by the NFL. Like, everyone was talking about him as the best guard, one of the best players in the draft, but theoretically, multiple players that could easily be playing guard were taken ahead of him by the NFL. So, maybe they're just a little bit lower on him than other people. But generally, monster, people moving, road grading, just everything you want about a powerful offensive lineman, plug him onto that offensive line, like it.
Yeah, I think he incredibly strong, knows it, uses it. I think he uses it to get away with some okay footwork. I don't think Brandon Thorne had concerns about his footwork maybe as much as I did, so take that for whatever it's worth. But I think he just kind of, again, I mentioned on the live show, he reminds me of a corner that plays with, say, subpar technique and just gets away with it and says, I run 4-3, let me play catch-up. I feel like he just overpowers people at times and doesn't get, his feet in position.
His power is kind of crazy.
Yes.
Like, people try and bull rush him and don't move him at all.
Yeah.
Like, you see sometimes a guy gets bull rushed, he sort of bounces back a couple and then throws the anchors on. Like, Will Campbell does this a lot, right? It's like he just about throws on the anchors before the quarterback gets buried. People bull rush Ioane and he doesn't move. He just stands there and it's like they just bull rushed a wall.
I'm trying to think now. So I always love the division stuff, right? So we just talked about Dexter Lawrence coming into the division and how maybe they don't have the best centers, but he's not always going to line up at nose tackle. If he goes up against Ioane, that's the type of player.
Or he draws a lot of double teams. So
so he'll see Dexter Lawrence a little bit. Anyway, I do worry about him against quickness, 3 techniques. I think Mason Graham maybe could give him some problems in the division. So just the matchup thing I think is going to be important. I think he's better against power, maybe not as good against undersized or speed, but he can move people at the point of attack. And classic Raven, man. I think that'll help their run game.
But the other interesting thing is, remember, the Ravens are switching offensive line blocking schemes. They bring in the guy whose name's escaping me.
Ledford?
Yeah, there you go. Who only wants to run.
Wide zone scheme guru, which doesn't necessarily
It's like they
fit.
shipped out the guy that would make sense for, right? And Tyler Linderbaum. Okay, it was a financial thing. But like Linderbaum has been kind of out of position or out of scheme. He's been in a power scheme, whereas I think he actually really fits that type of zone scheme. Meanwhile, Ioane, I think, probably fits more of a power scheme, and he's being plugged into this new zone scheme. It's a little weird swappity-doo they've done there.
All right, man. So we get the Bucs up next at pick 15. Ruben Bain Jr. is the selection. He falls to 15. I don't think anybody expected him to fall this far.
Yeah, maybe.
I will say this. The most recent mock drafts, our friend Ari Mayrov, I think you had him at 13 or 14.
Yeah.
I think Peter Schrager had him in the 13, 14 range.
He was getting to this area.
There was some signal there in mocks. I didn't buy it. I buy everything. I didn't buy that. I still thought Kansas City would be interested or the Saints would be interested, and they weren't. But I feel like the Bucs, once again, just get a really good football player with their pick.
Yeah. I think the NFL, I think they overthought a few different players in this draft. I mean, maybe not the NFL, but like just people generally, right? We talked about Caleb Downs already. Like, just don't overthink it. Just draft a really good football player. I feel the same with Ruben Bain. Like, you watch him play, He's the most dominant player on the field. He's wrecking people constantly. He's a constant problem against really good offensive linemen, against really good offensive lines. He's generally a wrecking crew against all these teams. Like, just draft the guy. Like, and what's the down? Like, that's all on the positive side of the weighing scales, and on the negative side, he's got really short arms. It's like, you know, can we just assume that he's maybe an outlier and that this is still going to be true?
Yeah,
you know.
So incredible power. You add him to that defensive line. Yaya Diaby is there. Al-Qadim Muhammad comes in as a free agent. I think we knew that they need some pass rush help, and they get a power player in Ruben Bain.
Yeah, I don't think the weight thing did him any favors, by the way. He, when he showed up the combine at 6'2", 263, when he was supposed to be sort of 275, 280, like if he just embraced being big and strong and powerful and said, hey, look, I'm not going to work out, I'm not going to show you anything else, but I just destroy people, right? I think people would have embraced that more, been like, he's so powerful, he's so strong, look at him, he's huge. And then he shows up at 263, and it's like, I mean, he's even that big?
I love that you mentioned David Walker's there, too, as the sawed-off pass rusher. They've got a couple different types. So, look, I think I compare Bain to a pitcher who throws below the hitting speed in baseball. Like, if I was pitching in the big leagues right now, they'd be like, man, this is so slow, it's messing up our timing.
Right.
There's something different about facing Bain, shorter arms, but a power player who has the bend that he does. Doesn't have the get off, but he's at the bend. It's just a unique combination that I think probably works in his favor. Again, I would love to have him or Chase Howell on these lines that have all these different body types, and I don't know if the Bucs kind of have that. What did I say?
Chase Howell.
Dude.
Yeah.
Cassius Howell.
What was I going to say? I think it's also a bit like Jared Verse. You know, where the first, like, Teron Armstead said this. Like, the first time that guy hits you, it's like it's different, right? He's coming to the table with a different level of power. And I keep coming back to this. Lance Zierlein had this. He tweeted it at me when this first came up months ago. He was like, he's simply too powerful to fail, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's sure. Like, again, we can debate the ceiling and how good he can become, but like, he is too strong and powerful to not be a good player in the NFL. Like, whatever he will be a productive, useful player on your pass rush rotation. I think that's what it comes down to. Like, he's not just a power player and, you know, there's a space for that. Like, he shows up with a level of violence that shocks people, and it does it repeatedly, time after time after time. And obviously you're prepared for him. Like, you know, he's a powerful guy. You know, you're not like surprised that that's what he's showing up with. But like the first time he hits you, it's like, dude, that's different. Like that, you can't prepare for that, right?
He was the best player in college football.
Yeah.
For most of last season, maybe for the entire season. Unblockable, game wrecker, and him and Mesidor were a great combination. Mm-hmm. I think if you're a Bucs fan, you were getting Mesidor in a lot of mock drafts, and Bain falls. And I think Bain's a better player and better prospect.
Right.
And so I think Bucs fans, once again, just like Emeka Ibuka and some of their other picks the last couple of years, I don't think they were expecting this.
No.
I don't think they were expecting to have him, and they just jumped at the opportunity.
It absolutely has the potential to be like a steal in this first round because he's so good.
We talked about Kenyon Sadiq, pick 16 for the Jets.
Yep.
Pick 17 is the Detroit Lions. They take Blake Miller. Just if you stitch all of our mock drafts together, I think we got this all right. We got him. We got Freeling. We got it all right. But Blake Miller, plug and play right tackle. That's what Mayock would say right here. Plug and play right tackle. 4-year starter. Good player. Solid in pass pro. Solid run blocker. And he tested really well. He ticked a lot of boxes. And the Lions had a massive need at tackle, and that's how the board fell.
I would love to know how much the fact that he played 4 years at right tackle, and Dan Campbell clearly has said he wants to move Penei Sewell to left tackle. I really wonder how much of that was a factor.
Well, I think in this draft, a lot of people still probably have, like, Spencer Fano is a right tackle, played right tackle. Kadyn Proctor looks like the old school prototypical right tackle. Blake Miller played right tackle. Max Iheanachor played right tackle. So most of the players that were going to be available there were right tackles. And I think that was a part of, hey, we're going to move Penei to the left because most of the guys in the draft play on the right side, and we'll just keep him there. But he could step right in as the right tackle. The more I watched Blake Miller, the more I liked him. I really thought at first I went from thinking I was going to see a second-round pick to saying, hey, I'd be happy with him in the late first. Would New England be interested? They ended up going with a different tackle. Would the Texans be interested? I thought those were going to be good fits. And then one of the mock drafts, I said, well, if my choice is Blake Miller developmental Monroe Freeling, these other developmental tackles. I think Miller could be the second or third best tackle in this draft, and I think that's a good move for the Lions here.
Yeah, I really liked him. I think, I ended up saying I preferred him to Monroe Freeling. I preferred him to certainly Kadyn Proctor at tackle. But it's sort of unexciting. He's just good, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe he's not spectacular or anything, but a 4-year starter at right tackle. He played almost 4,000 snaps in college at right tackle. Like 100 of his 3,800 snaps were at left tackle when somebody got injured, I think. Other than that, it's basically 3,800 snaps at right tackle.
It's a lot of snaps.
It's a lot of snaps. I mean, we're talking about these guys. Like, what was it? Amarius Mims came into the NFL with like 800 snaps or something to his name, right? This guy's played like
the next
4
pick,
times.
Caleb Banks is at 929.
Yeah, like it's 3,800 snaps. It's a ton of experience, and he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got the strength. Like he's just good, consistently. Good to not quite great, but really good.
Yeah, and look, I think some of the other tackles might have higher theoretical upside because we've seen way more Blake Miller than we've seen of Monroe Freeling or Caleb Lomu, and they're younger in the whole thing, but I think you're getting a good dependable player here at 17. Reminds me a little bit of the Jack Campbell pick for the Lions at 18. You just plug him in, he's a good player, and you're going to be happy with him.
Right.
All right, there's a lot of Vikings fans in the chat, and they're upset.
They're upset? Why?
Caleb Banks at 18.
Just watch his highlight reel. Watch his highlight reel, you will immediately think this is the best player in the draft.
Mentioned 929 snaps. Now, that's across 5 years. Part of it was injury.
Yeah.
Part of it was heavy defensive line rotation. Never played more than 420 or so snaps. The highlight reel is spectacular. Both
it really
from
is.
a pass rush perspective, you could see reps at the Senior Bowl where it's just instant wins at 6'6", 327 with 35-inch arms. This is a built-in-a-lab defensive tackle.
86-inch wingspan. That's 7'2".
7'2". He's a 7'2" wingspan guy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like about Caleb Banks.
Yes.
His wins are pure dominance.
They're freakish. Genuinely freakish.
In the run game, he's taken 300-plus pounders, throwing them to the ground, and making plays. Now, his losses, there's a lot of the 6'6" defensive tackles through the years. Way back to my Jags, Marcus Stroud, who was 6'6".
Yeah.
You've got Javon Kinlaw at 6'6". The bad ones look.
Kinlaw 6'6"?
Yeah, he's up in that range.
Didn't realize that.
The pad level becomes an issue. So, like, Banks' bad reps are bad, right? Mm-hmm. They get under him, and he gets moved at the point of attack. So there's some bad reps in there, and he's only got the 900 snaps.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got the injury piece. So, your thoughts on Banks?
Yeah, again, look, you put on his wins, and it is like they are preposterously good. Like he looks like, if you just watch his highlight reel, he looks like the best player in the draft. Like in this draft particularly, like you would be saying, look, there's no blue chip player. This guy looks like the blue chip player that isn't in this draft. If you just watch his wins, like they are absolutely ridiculous. The quickness that he has at 6'6", 330 is utterly nuts. Now the problems are, he hasn't done it that consistently. As you said, the pad level gets too high. His play against the run has only ever been average at best. And then really the biggest red flag is he's now had 3 separate instances of being injured in the same foot at 6'6", 330 pounds. When a 330-pound guy has been having problems with a foot, that's concerning. Now, working against that, his agent and his doctor say it's all fine. So, all good.
Chad's asking for his PVM score. So PVM is my descriptive college metric. My projection is draft score, and that's low. It's low for him.
How low?
He is, pull it up real quick, 34.
How much of that is he basically missed all last year hurt?
No, it's based off when he's on the field.
Okay.
And over his entire career.
But your thing doesn't like big chunks of missed time, right?
No, it doesn't. Not necessarily. Doesn't matter. So I've got his only real plus year was 2024. We didn't see much of him last year. Mine's more rate-based and, when he's on the field. So he's got some good pass rush production. Again, I don't think the Florida scheme always put him in the best position to succeed. I think he took a little bit to get going. He's always had this high upside. He just hasn't always reached it. And I think from a run game perspective, again, like the wins are insane.
Yes.
But you also want to know why he didn't do it more often. And then there are losses there too. Like there's both sides of it. Why didn't he dominate? He's got one of the lowest run stop percentages that you'll see
right.
in the draft. So he's the type of guy that should be shedding blocks and finishing plays, making plays up and down the line of scrimmage, and be a pass rush disruptor. The other part that I thought was fascinating was, okay, Kwesi's been fired here. And, I'm not saying they're not using analytics or numbers or anything like that there, but this feels more like a scouting type of pick.
Often when institutions fire something, right, you tend to see a severe overcorrection in the other direction, right? So if you were going, wow, the analytics guy didn't work out, let's go the other way. I mean, this is the type of player you would pick, right? Let's go get the freak show who hasn't had a great statistical profile.
Yeah, and so for me, risk appetite-wise, this type of player that has the injury history, the proverbial upside, I like to take this player if I've got four, if I'm the Jets, right? I have 4 picks. And
sure.
Like, you want to hit every pick out of the park, but you can handle more risk.
You feel better about it, yeah.
Right? And for the Vikings, who have not had many picks the last few years, they haven't hit on many picks the last few years. You're not – every other team's just get the offensive lineman, get the dependable player, get the good football player. They're swinging for the fences here on a team that doesn't have a very young foundation based off draft picks the last couple of years. It's just an interesting dynamic.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I'll read you 2 bits of the beast from Dane Brugler that sort of sum up the good and the bad. Well, overall, Banks has a rare combination of size, raw power, and big man twitch, all of which lead to big-time flashes and glimpses of his ceiling. Then he says, however, the absence of a healthy senior season complicates his projection, blah, 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 blah. The really scary bit, though, is the foot stuff. Fractured fourth metatarsal and left foot the night before. Oh, so hang on. 2 bits. So injured his left foot during the 2025 spring practices and wore a boot for a few weeks. Foot then fully snapped during fall camp, which forced him to sit out the first 2 games of the 2025 season, returned for the LSU game, but re-aggravated the injury and needed surgery, returned for the final 2 games. And then he fractured his fourth metatarsal in his left foot, so that's now 4 straight injuries in the same foot. The night before the on-field testing at the NFL Combine, didn't realize it until midway through the on-field drills, and underwent surgery March 2026, which has sidelined him until June.
Big time froze.
And this is despite his agent and doctor assuring you that all is fine in his foot.
But
that's 4 instances of the same foot.
And that's why that's risky at 18.
Yes.
The whole profile, like the production profile is risky at 18. The injury risk is risky at 18.
It's one of the biggest boom or bust swings in the first round.
But I'll never forget, we were walking to our steak dinner at the Combine, and I did a little live reaction because that workout was that good.
Yeah.
And
with a broken foot.
Yes.
Right.
So Caleb Banks to the Vikings. Now you add him to Jalen Redmond, who's been fantastic, and as you mentioned, maybe a lot of that scheme is, tying up blockers for defensive tackles, freeing other people up. We'll see if he could become the freakish playmaker that he's capable of at 6'6", 330.
Right. I think that's just the best. I mean, it's the biggest swing for the fence. It's the biggest boom or bust pick in this first round, I think.
Who am I praising? I'm not praising anything. I told you the guy's at 34. I wouldn't draft him in the first round. Kidding me? I would take him if I had 5 picks in the top 50. He'd be one of my 5, maybe, in the 40s. That's what I would do. I'm trying to tell you what the teams are thinking, not just what I would do here. I would do a lot of things differently. Carolina Panthers up next. Pick 19, they go Monroe Freeling, the left tackle out of Georgia. And we thought this was a potential pairing here too, right? They've got this left tackle question, Ike Ekwonu, with a long-term injury. Rasheed Walker comes in as a 1-year stopgap, and Monroe Freeling is in this developmental tackle range, just a 2-year starter at Georgia with unbelievable size, movement skills, and upside.
Yeah, I think another one of those. I think we had at some point between our mock drafts, we had Blake Miller going to the Lions, and I think we had Monroe Freeling going to the Panthers at some point as well. It does make a ton of sense, right? I think they have, if there are people that like Monroe Freeling more than we do, right? The Tices, Nate and Mike, they both love the guy,
love
right?
him.
Other people as well. I mean, he came out of the Combine, and we were talking about this guy as a top 10 player, and maybe he could go to 6 or whatever. The Browns would take him. So the hype seemed to get out of control, and then apparently it cooled down by draft time. But if he is as good as his supporters say he is, he could easily unseat Rasheed Walker and start week 1 for the Carolina Panthers, right? Ike Ekwonu is hurt. Rasheed Walker is only on $4 million a year, so it's not like they're tied to him massively financially. Freeling could start day 1 and be, an improvement on this line and be great. If, however, he needs a bit of development, and I think he does, his run blocking is average at best, and I think, honestly, it's kind of a liability at this point. The pass protection is closer, but, there's still some work to do there. If he needs some time, you've got Rasheed Walker for a year, and, maybe next year is when he takes over from Ike Ekwonu and allows him to move on from him. So I just think it's a great fit. It fits. It helps the Panthers. They might not need him right now, but they probably need him long term, and it also helps him because he doesn't need to play week 1.
I got some similar feelings when I watched Freeling and then Caleb Lomu. I think when you see both players that have the frame and the movement skills, I mean, he explodes out of a stance when he's pulling or getting to the second level, and ran under 5 flat. He ran a 4.93 with the 35-inch arms, and just built in a lab offensive tackle. Mm-hmm. But I think he just gets bull rushed and bullied a little bit. Run game is inconsistent. But I look at core strength improvement. I think him and Caleb Lomu are so similar in that respect. I think that's what's really interesting about these tackle prospects. I think Freeling's a little ways away. Lomu's a little bit ways away. Blake Miller's more of a finished product, and you value different things depending on where you are with the team. And the Panthers are the right fit as you laid out to maybe give them some time. The other tackles that we mentioned on the live show that come to mind, Nate Solder, 6'8", out of Colorado. He eased his way in with the Patriots. He did have Dante Scarnecchia. Eased his way in with the Patriots, did a little swing tackle stuff early on, played some tight end, and then eventually became a dependable starter. Colton Miller, someone in the chat brought up when we were live, started slow in his career and then became one of the better left tackles. I think that's the type of path you're looking at with Freeling here.
Yeah, and it's are you drafting for right now, or are you drafting a guy for a year or two's time? Monroe Freeling is the guy that in 2 years' time, if you told me he was the best tackle from this draft, I would have no trouble believing it. Like, he's got that kind of talent. I just don't think he's there yet.
And I love getting the other opinions as well, which was the Tices saying top 10. Absolutely. They both love Fano too, but they loved the idea of Monroe Freeling being a top 10 caliber pick. Pick 20. So some drama here. This was fun. Dallas is at pick 20.
It's when all the trades started.
Yes, more trades. They trade down from 20 to 23. Eagles come up, and they pick Makai Lemon, the USC wide receiver. Now, we've been live. We've been working this entire time, but I saw some stuff pop up that apparently when this happened, Makai Lemon was on the phone with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What's going on here?
Yeah, and look, you speculated at the time. You're like, what are they jumping? They're jumping ahead of Pittsburgh. They could draft a wide receiver. They've got receiver needs. Well, apparently they were on the phone with him, and they jumped ahead of Pittsburgh and snagged him.
Yeah, I thought, so what's Pittsburgh even doing on the phone before, like, hey, we're going to pick you in a pick. I hope you're still there.
Yeah, I mean, people do that, right? You're up next. Like, we're about to pick you.
I think you just make the call when you're there, like when you actually get the pick in, right? So the Eagles, I mean, maybe because they thought the Cowboys were on the clock, there's no way they're taking
Philadelphia's
a wide receiver.
Right. Or they're not going to take Philadelphia.
No, but Dallas was on the clock, and the Steelers might be saying, well, they're not going to take a receiver.
Right.
And then Philly jumps them. So a lot of storylines here, obviously, in the division. Every time Makai Lemon makes a play, we have to say, how did the Cowboys let the Eagles get Makai Lemon? And look, he's a how he does it again player for me, man. I
don't know. To me, this was more of a we get this whole pre-draft process, right? It's like, here's the guys that are being talked up, here's where they are and it's like sometimes I feel like the NFL just sees guys slightly differently, and it's like, again, Makai Lemon, everyone kind of sees him the same. The only question is value. And everyone was sort of talking him up as a guy that should go in the top 10 and blah, blah, blah. It's like, to me, there were similar value propositions to Emeka Egbuka from a year ago. It's like, he's a good, solid, dependable, second-tier receiver who can't play X, but can do everything else, right? And last year, we sort of determined that was worth pick number 20, pick number 21, something like that. Now, every draft is unique, but I didn't really understand why we were inflating that by like 10 or more picks to be like Makai Lemon should go in the top 10 somewhere. I mean, this is where he belongs to me, is somewhere around 20.
Yeah, I'm saying it's a how he does it again because I think he just got a really good football player.
Sure.
I don't care where. I mean, the fact that, the Eagles weren't going to take him at 10 because they're not picking there. I think it's just they got a really good football player, just like getting Quinyon Mitchell where they got him, just like getting Jalen Carter at 9. They just got a player.
But unlike those guys.
A really good football player.
But unlike
and
those guys.
I value Makai Lemon and Emeka Egbuka probably more than you.
Yeah.
And that was proven right last year.
For about 6 weeks.
Before the injury. Before the injury, Emeka Egbuka was.
Whose injury? Mike Evans?
Egbuka's injury. Before he got hurt, he was outstanding.
I mean, he was outstanding, and then he had to become.
Then he was hurt. He got hurt. Changed everything.
I would argue that actually, he found a level as the season wore on.
We'll see what happens. I like Makai Lemon quite a bit.
I like Makai Lemon quite a lot as well. I just think this is kind of where those guys should go. What is interesting, though, is if the reports are true and the Eagles are moving on from A.J. Brown, that receiving core starts to look pretty interesting now. You've got Devontae Smith, who, as much as we've seen a lot of him in the NFL, I don't think we know what he is yet because, he was drafted high first-round draft pick. Incredible route runner, incredible sideline work, incredible ball skills, but he's 160-something pounds, and it's like, can that guy really play against elite number one press physical coverage in the NFL? And he couldn't really early, and then they got A.J. Brown, who's obviously 225 pounds and a monster, and it's like, well, now he doesn't need to do that. And once you've freed him from that, Devontae Smith looks fantastic. Now, did he develop that during the time A.J. Brown was here, or does Devontae Smith still have problems with that kind of stuff? And if he does, now you've got Devontae Smith, who may have problems with that. You've got Makai Lemon, who may have problems with that. And it's like, have you just lost the skill set that was able to deal with that? And you've got this whole Jalen Hurts thing of, will he actually target the middle of the field? There was a disproportionate reliance on the ISO routes on the outside against aggressive press coverage to A.J. Brown, right? You may have completely removed that from the entire offense, and now he has to play the game a different way. It's just it's a very interesting addition.
The other piece that I brought up, so Lemon's skill set, right? We always talk about this, Egbuka, this like spectrum of receivers who are inside, outside, and maybe you want to avoid press and the whole thing, and Amon-Ra comes up, and then a lot of people brought up Amon-Ra in this whole thing.
It is very
difficult.
But
it's a spectrum of like
that works.
Amon-Ra might be the best, and Khalil Shakir is on this other end, and Cooper Kupp is at the high end, and Emeka Egbuka is in there, and he's in that world. And I think he's going to be really good and really productive. And he's a good route runner, tough as nails, tough at the catch point. The worst tape you'll see was the probably middle of the second quarter through the end of the Notre Dame game when he's going up head-to-head against Leonard Moore, who's talking about, who's going to be a top 5 player next year in the draft.
Yeah.
But then you have this idea of Jalen Hurts likes his A.J. Brown types.
Yeah.
He wants the big outside one-on-one ISO winner, and you've got new scheme. I think the Eagles are trying to get him to throw to the middle of the field more. No offensive coordinator has been able to do that. You're probably going to lose A.J. Brown, and Makai Lemon's just complete opposite skill set as A.J. Brown. On paper, the fit's not great. On paper, the fit doesn't make sense. But then there's sometimes we used to joke about Derek Carr. Like when Derek Carr was not taking shots down the field, one way to fix that might be if you draft Henry Ruggs in his 4.2 speed, you're making him take some shots down the field. Are we making Jalen Hurts work the middle of the field now? Are we going to make him open up parts to his game that he hasn't been great at, that he hasn't been comfortable with? That's part of this storyline that I'm interested in. There's multi-layer story going on here. There's A.J. Brown. There's the reporting behind A.J. Brown. There's the trade with Dallas. And then there's Makai Lemon. It's a multi-layered story that I can't wait to watch unfold here.
I really do like Lemon as a player. I do. It's a very interesting fit with that Eagles dynamic now, particularly if they're shifting or moving on from A.J. Brown. But Lemon is a baller. Like, he's tough as nails. He's a good player. He's a really good route runner. He consistently gets open. He consistently sells defensive backs on whatever it is he's trying to make happen. He's going to be a really good player for them. I just wonder how that core works with Jalen Hurts and without A.J. Brown.
So I love that. I just love the story. Anytime you get the trade up move, it's in the division, it's with rivals. We'll keep a close eye on it. Steelers at 21. Perhaps we're going to trade Makai Lemon, or draft Makai Lemon. So keep an eye on that as well. They go Max Iheanachor, the offensive tackle out of Arizona State. More tackles coming off the board here. The reports recently that Broderick Jones is slow in his recovery, and Iheanachor, high upside right tackle, young at the position, moves extremely well. I think he's got some technique issues to maybe clean up, but pretty productive for a guy that, again, is still on the ascent here.
Yeah, raw player, has all the physical traits you want, but is pretty young to being a football player. Like his early life sport was soccer, but like under 13 type of thing when he was in Nigeria. Then he played basketball in high school, so he hasn't been playing football that long, but you can see the movement skills, and he's got the size, obviously. He was sort of late, I think he's been very raw, but then late on between the Texas Tech game against David Bailey, et cetera, and the Senior Bowl, I think you can see the development. Now, the Senior Bowl, he lost inside a few times. It was a little bit concerning. But I felt like he was my favorite project offensive tackle in this draft. Like, I can just see him becoming a monster.
Yeah, 6'5", 330, easy mover. It's now 3 tackles in 4 years that the Steelers have drafted between Broderick Jones.
Which never feels good. But, ultimately when you miss, you can't just stop drafting.
But
go back to the well.
This is where you get your tackles. There were, 7 that went off the board here. This is where you have to draft them. They're very rare to sneak a second rounder in there. You get a couple here and there. Very rare to get it beyond third rounder later. Those are your developmental tackle types, and a few of those hit here and there, but it's not as common. It's where you need to get them. And you've got a question about left tackle Broderick Jones. Fautano could always kick into guard. They just needed more flexibility on the offensive line. So, good pick for the Steelers here.
Yeah. Again, he was the guy that was being talked about as could he sneak into the first round, went a bit higher, but we made this point a couple of shows ago. Like, if anyone that could be at 30 could easily also be at 20. Like, it's not that big of a jump to get a guy that's a fringe first rounder up to 20, 21, 22. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah. And he's got, like I said, young at the position.
Like, technically it's a reach, but it's fine.
Ran a 4.91, 34-inch arms. He's got the tools, the frame. He's shown improvement every year at offensive tackle. Sometimes that's, what you just want to see on the ascent. Max Iheanachor. All right, who's next here? Pick 22. So the Chargers on the clock. We theorized, do they reach for a guard? Do they go grab a guard that's not expected to go this high? They do not. They go Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher out of Miami, who goes just 7 picks lower than Ruben Bain here.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think Mesidor could have been the pick at 15 for the Bucs if Bain wasn't there. But Mesidor, they add him to the mix. They got Khalil Mack coming back for 1 year. They got Tuli Peloto, and add in another multi-gap winner here for the defensive front.
Yeah, I really like Mesidor as a player. Again, like his only knock really to me is he's 25, or he's an older prospect, right?
Yeah.
And that scares people because it scares people for reasonably good reasons, but I think, this landscape that is changing or has changed in college football, I think we need to sort of factor that in, that we don't, Eric DeCosta was talking about this, right? We've gone from whatever it was, 4% to like 18% of like older prospects.
Yeah.
And the point that he made at the back end of that sort of gets lost is we don't really know what that means yet, right? And I think that's the thing with some of these guys. Like, generally, it's not going to be good, right? And that's another point that he made. Like, it's not a good thing for these old guys, but that doesn't mean that there won't be a lot more of these older players that will become very good NFL players. Like, if you just showed somebody Mesidor's profile and said the guy's 22, he would be a top 10 player, I think. He's relentless. He's violent. He's productive. He can move around the defensive line like Bain. You can move him inside. Actually, a lot of his best plays came from the interior. He used to be a defensive tackle, a nose tackle, and some of his best stuff still comes inside where he's just too quick for guards. The only concern is the age thing, and I don't know that that's a problem. So it might be a steal.
And I'll repeat myself for the millionth time. The age thing, why is it a concern? You have to understand what you've seen from a production standpoint, understand what you see from film when you're watching him, that he's a man amongst boys for the most part, age-wise. And then the second contract thing, the decline thing. Is he going to decline in year 6? Is that when you start the age curve and everything? Like, that stuff's valid. But it's both things, right? It's understanding how to quantify the production properly and adjust for age. And then, would you rather have a 26, 27-year-old on a second contract? Absolutely. Yeah. I think the fit for the Chargers and that the three-man edge
really
group
nice
of Mack and Tuipulotu, Bud Dupree still there, speaking of high-motor players. But Mesidor's ability, like he fits in with Mack and Tuipulotu. He can add that interior pass rush. I think he's great at tracking down quarterbacks. I think he's athletic, in the pocket. And I think, I always think of, Bo Nix and Patrick Mahomes, both guys in the division they have to deal with. And he's going to be, trying to sack Fernando Mendoza in the division as well.
To me, I don't really care about the contract stuff. To me, the only question is, because he was 25 or was 24, is 25 now. Because he was 24, was he just wrecking shop against 18-year-olds being 24? Right now, the one thing I haven't seen anybody do actually is get that granular and literally play-by-play. What is the average age of the people he whooped up on? Did he just beat a bunch of 18-year-olds, or did he actually play?
It's not about that.
A bunch of 23-year-olds, and it's fine.
It's not about that necessarily. It's just, again, baseball comp, because in baseball there's 6 layers of the minors. When you're a 23-year-old at a lower level, you just adjust. It's like, this level usually has 20-year-olds. Right? Or when you're 18 in AA, it's like, you're playing against 24-year-olds on average, right? It's just a general age adjustment if you're looking at production.
I know, but we have the ability to actually go and check if that's a thing, right? One of the reasons age, breakout age or whatever is important is because it's basically a proxy for do you have talent, right? But when you've got a guy like Mesidor who started off as a nose tackle, has moved to an edge, he's undergone a wild transition of what he was supposed to be as a player.
Reasons.
You can explain why you didn't break out when you were 18, right? But then the question becomes, because I think it's entirely plausible that a 24-year-old just happens to face a slew of 18-year-old freshman left tackles, right, and destroys them all. And that's warped because you're going to go into the NFL facing a bunch of 29-year-old monsters, and you're not going to do that anymore. But we actually have the ability to check that kind of thing. I don't know that anybody has.
All right, man. Mesidor to the Chargers. We talked about Malachi Lawrence and the Cowboys at 23. We talked about KC Concepcion at 24 to the Browns. The Bears at pick 25. They did go safety. We mocked a safety to them a bunch, but not Dillon Thieneman. That dude was going to the Vikings at 18 in every single mock.
Right.
But he's a Bear staying in the NFC North like he was already a Viking. Thieneman, man, they added some athleticism to the back end here for the Bears. Their safety overhaul this offseason is complete.
It's complete. Yeah. Right. It's a weird one because Thieneman was so locked in as the Vikings pick for every mock draft. Rarely did anybody have to entertain the idea that might not be the pick. And what happens if he goes somewhere else? It is interesting that they just sort of shipped off 2 safeties and brought in 2 safeties. Particularly when they were good. It's not like, these are 2 problem spots we need to upgrade. They add 2 good safeties.
Kobe Bryant comes in from the Seahawks. Thieneman comes in.
Bayard at least, is old, so you can understand that one. But Jaquan Brisker was a really good player for them.
Yeah.
Maybe
the injury stuff.
But anyway, they brought in Kobe Bryant, good player, and then Dillon Thieneman, who's got that incredible range, the incredible side-to-side ability to play deep and really let everybody else in that secondary go to town.
Yeah, he's like I've said a few times now. I don't love him one-on-one. I think he reads quarterbacks better than he reads receivers, right? He can be torched one-on-one, but his eyes on the quarterback playing zone.
Perfect for that deep lying safety where you just let him use his range, play zone, keep the top on the defense.
And I've talked about safeties, like running in the 4-3s doesn't matter a ton, but when you're a good football player and you run in the 4-3s, I think it's just an added bonus, right? His eyes are good. Mm-hmm. He gets into the right position, and then he is just a bullet, just a missile at the catch point, making plays, both short zone, deep zone. So I think he adds a lot of versatility to the secondary. He's got great tackle range. I don't think you're going to put him in the box and say, hey, go, be the cleanup guy here. But I think tackle range and everything that he does, just a good football player. That Purdue team a couple of years ago had some playmakers, man. Him and Max Clare and Marcus Bowe. They had some good draft picks. A couple of them transferred, obviously, but Thieneman was one of those guys, and he really elevated that Oregon defense.
He's the natural Bayard replacement. I mean, if you are trying to get younger, he's that style of player.
Next pick. So more movement here. Buffalo starts one of 3 trades down. So Buffalo's the pick at 26. They move to 28 temporarily, and the Houston Texans come up, and they select Keylan Rutledge. Now, he is a guard.
Nominally.
By name. Where's our chat? Someone saved me.
Nomad Scott says, for the Texans, it's likely that Rutledge competes at center. He took snaps at the Senior Bowl, and Brugler said some teams see him as a center day one.
You saved me from your victory lapping, them taking a guard here because of Wyatt Teller and Ed Ingram already being in the building. This I could kind of see. Either way. I mean, Rutledge, I could see him at guard. But if they're going to try to play
Jake Andrews at center, I mean, either way, they're replacing somebody in that line.
They are. But I mean, we've known that they've needed offensive line help for the last couple of years. They made some moves this offseason. They're continuing that. Rutledge is the guy, like when you talk to people and talk to teams, good player, ascending player, tough, stout, but just a dog, want him in the room type of guy.
Yeah.
And knowing the way D'Amico Ryans builds that team, it just feels like a D'Amico type of pick here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so interestingly, we had one of our bets was some guy saying that there will be a reach of 32 spots effectively on the consensus board. Depending on the consensus board you use, Rutledge is a reach of 32 spots on the consensus board, which makes him the biggest reach in this first round.
That was who's that? Harry Teddy that did it?
I don't remember who it was.
But he came into the chat earlier today and conceded.
Oh, did he?
He conceded that he lost because he was looking at a
different board.
At the board we were looking at, but someone else,
a Reefs board, says,
someone else tagged us and said a Reefs board's got this. Right. Sean Newkirk.
Yeah. So technically, depending on the board you're using, he is a reach of at least.
We'll acknowledge that.
A full round.
Merch is heading out for that one.
But basically, the biggest reach in the first round, according to the Reefs consensus board, and blah blah blah. However, a guy whose name was popping up a lot in terms of could be a first round player. So maybe the consensus board was simply slow on adjusting to a thing that was pretty common.
So he's another guy. Like he's pretty athletic. I think he's super stout. He doesn't give up a lot of ground. It's another pad level type of question. He feels a little top heavy, or a little like a strange body type. I think defensive tackles can get under him a little bit. He's a little high when he's a puller, so he'll get popped a little bit. So I think there's some technique questions. His best season was his last year. Another guy that's been on the ascent, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's not good that you don't have the full body of work. So good, solid player. I thought he was going to go early round 2, and the Texans get him round 1. And if he is going to move to center, that's a good size center, and I think he could do a pretty good job there.
Yeah, it's interesting to project it. I mean, round 1 centers are not the most common thing in the world to begin with. And then when you're projecting a guy to move position to go into center is just an interesting call, particularly when you're drafting a guy theoretically a reach relative to the consensus board by up to a round. It's an interesting move across the board for the Texans, like identifying him as the center, if indeed that's what's happening, drafting him this high as a center, and then potentially reaching by a full round relative to the consensus board.
Trading up to get him.
The
Niners have a guard need, and I think they were trying to I wasn't catching it at the time, but they were leapfrogging the Niners. They get him, and then the Niners with the next pick trade out.
Right.
And so they move from 27 down to 30 and eventually out of the first round. So Rutledge goes at 26. That was Buffalo trading down. At 27, we already talked about Chris Johnson. Miami traded up to get him. Niners moved down and eventually out of the first round. And then the next pick was the Buffalo Bills. They trade down once again. This time in the division.
Yep.
How did the Bills let the Patriots get Caleb Lomu, Utah left tackle?
Well, the good thing is this is different to at least they weren't planning on drafting a tackle.
They weren't
necessarily.
They don't need a tackle.
But it is interesting for the Patriots with all this Will Campbell discourse since the Super Bowl that they draft a potentially developmental offensive tackle. Now, look, they've got the great Morgan Moses reaching 187 years old on the other side of the line. So that's probably the more natural spot for Caleb Lomu to eventually take over. But it does mean, if we roll with this Will Campbell thing again and he struggles, you have another option.
Yeah, you got some flexibility. Lomu was my favorite developmental tackle in the draft. I'm calling him developmental because he's just a redshirt sophomore. So he's a young player, just 2 years starting, 6'6", 308, great movement skills, 4.99, 40, and fast 10-yard dash, and good, just moves really well. He's got some losses. I mentioned Will Campbell in my notes. He's got some losses like Will Campbell had in college that are ugly. That if you are not loving the player, you'd say, look at these are the concerns. There's some ugly plays, but I think they're fixable. I think his ugly plays are fixable. I think they're technique issues. I think he's athletic enough to just get to his landmarks and play with some patience, and he just doesn't always do it. So I think there's a lot to like about Caleb Lomu, and I think I saw somebody already talk about position flexibility for him. I feel like he's just a tackle.
Right.
I also think Campbell's going to be a tackle. So I think New England, especially like if they turn around and go get A.J. Brown, and that doesn't become this massive need that they have to fit, A.J. Brown comes in, there's your short-term play. Lomu's a long-term play. Tackle insurance, maybe the eventual right tackle to replace Morgan Moses. Maybe he can move around a little bit, but I don't think so.
And
but the other part is, Vrabel said Will Campbell staying at left tackle.
Well, because they already signed a guard. They signed Elijah Vera Tucker. Now he's got an injury history to him, and maybe that's, But, now they have Micah Wenu at one side, Elijah Vera Tucker on the other side. They've already moved Jared Wilson into center with that.
Right, I think they're in a good spot.
So they don't really have the spot for the guard, right? Like if kicking Will Campbell into guard, that would have to unseat one of those guys who are good guards already. It's not as easy as that, right? There's no spot for him anymore.
Center would be the only other spot, but Jared Wilson's a natural center, and I think he's going to be fine there. So look, I think it's okay to think long term. I think it's okay to say he's our starter at right tackle next year. We're assuming Will Campbell's going to continue to progress and not play injured and the whole deal. So it's more of a long term play for the New England Patriots here.
Yeah.
We already talked about Peter Woods at 29 for the Chiefs. We already talked about Omar Cooper Jr. at 30 for the Jets. We already talked about Keldric Faulk.
Beautiful.
At 31 for the Titans. And at 1:39 a.m. Eastern Time, we are to the last pick of the draft. Again,
so soon.
Jadarian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame to the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to use one of their 4 picks. Maybe they'll end up with more here. Plug and play starting running back here to replace Ken Walker, Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah. A thing that had come up a lot in mock drafts, and I didn't think it would happen. I was surprised that this was a move they made. In part because they had openly been saying they were trying to trade out of this pick, right? From before the draft, John Schneider was like, yes, we would love to trade out of the first round. Because coming into this draft, they had the fewest draft picks of any team in the NFL. They had just 4 draft picks, this obviously being one of them. It would make a ton of sense for them to trade out and add more draft picks. And if you were going to address running back, do it later on. Problem is, if nobody was willing to do that, if you were stuck at pick number 32 and you did only have 4 draft picks and you had this acute need at running back because you let Ken Walker leave and Zach Charbonnet's hurt in a significant way, you kind of had to just draft a player. And so I guess they just bit the bullet and said, look, we need a running back. We can't guarantee the price will be there at the bottom of the second round, so we just have to take him.
4.2 yards after contact per carry in his career. Pretty good explosive play rate. I mean, he ran a 4.49, but found big plays. I thought he did a really nice job. Getting to his second gear, creating big plays, tough to tackle, tough body type to tackle. Doesn't have a ton of experience in the pass game. Similar to Kenneth Walker, really, through that regard. They didn't use Walker a ton as a pass catcher. Price doesn't have a ton of catches, ton of pass pro reps, but he was a part-time player. I mean, he was a complementary player to Jeremiyah Love, and Notre Dame sets a record, first time ever. The same school has the top 2 running backs off the board in an NFL draft.
Yeah. Pretty fascinating dynamic. I mean, I think he's a good player. I like him overall. I think he's got some juice. He's extremely powerful for his size. He's got that breakaway ability. I think it's a good addition. It's just I don't think that's what the Seahawks wanted to have to do.
He's got some freak contact balance plays in there as well, and he's always moving forward, some kick return ability. Saw 33rd team had Robert Smith do a nice breakdown on both Jeremiyah Love and Jadarian Price and the differences between the two. He was good enough to keep Jeremiyah Love off the field a little bit, right? For Notre Dame to not say, you're a complete workhorse because you're Jeremiyah Love.
You're never coming off the field.
Future top 3 pick. We knew you were going top 3. That says a lot about Price, just stealing a little bit of production away from Jeremiyah
look at
Love.
the amount that Boise State ran Ashton Genty into the absolute dirt because he was Ashton Genty, right? Notre Dame didn't do that. They were at least happy to have him on the field more.
The other piece here, there's only like 5 running backs on my top 50 consensus board. So you go back to Seattle and the acute need, and sometimes you just have to
That's the thing.
fill that spot, or you're going to go all journey. You go the journeyman route at running back, and I think still get by, but I think they want to be a little bit better than that, as they're trying to repeat next year.
This is the thing. I think, again, relative to the consensus board, this is a fairly significant reach, and I'm sure they said it. They would have loved to have traded out of the first round, but if nobody's willing to give you the deal and you're left here, well, we've got 4 draft picks, we need a running back, and the next time we come up is like the bottom of the second round, we might just have to take him.
All right, man, that's it. We went through every pick twice.
Yeah.
That was fun. I
So
enjoy this.
if we pull up this graphic, we can see the biggest reaches and steals relative to the consensus board, if we get that on the screen. Basically, the biggest reaches, according to this, Price, who we just talked about, Keylan Rutledge, by far the biggest one. That's the one that's like a full round.
Yeah.
Malachi Lawrence, Ty Simpson, and then Caleb Banks, Blake Miller, Max Iheanachor are classified as reaches, though those are certainly Miller and Iheanachor are smaller. And then the steals side of things, Keldric Faulk, who, again, a lot of people thought was going to go extremely high. Dillon Thieneman to the Bears. Makai Lemon, your guy for the Eagles. Ruben Bain going to the Bucks, sliding as low as 15 when people assumed he was a top 10 guy. Caleb Downs, relative to the consensus board, that still had him ranked extremely high. And then everything else, I think, is small enough to fit within the margins.
I like it. I think quarterback, Simpson, quarterback's always a unique case, so I don't care about that as much. Banks is going to be – I think Banks is the most volatile pick.
Yeah. Again, I think that's the biggest boom or bust pick in the first round.
You could say Malachi Lawrence, too, and I think depending on which consensus board you're using, I don't know if people caught up to the Malachi Lawrence hype as much, and I don't know if that's the right indication of the market for him. But even him, the same thing as Banks played 900 snaps. He played 1,300. They're toolsy type of guys. They're going to be more boom or bust, I think, inherently.
Yeah, I think I think both Lawrence and Rutledge were moving up the consensus board, and it was maybe just a little bit, behind, because neither of those guys being in the first round was a wild shock. Maybe a little bit high for Lawrence at 23 as opposed to 29 or whatever. But if I told you yesterday that both those guys would be in the first round, it wouldn't have blown your mind.
Players still remaining who are interesting. Caden McDonald, the nose tackle of Ohio State. We had him going late first quite a bit. Oh, Ari's got a list. Just read Ari's list. So we still don't know about Jermod McCoy.
Well, he's the guy, the classic guy that's fallen presumably because of the injury.
If the knee's that bad, I don't know if it's a fall to the mid-second like Will Johnson, or if this is like, hey, we got to wait till round 3.
Right.
So that'll be a story for tomorrow night. Wide receiver Denzel Boston falls out of the first. Buffalo passed on him 3 times, just saying. But I think Boston's interesting. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety out of Toledo.
That's a surprising one. Like, he was being talked about as like a mid-first round pick, a guy that's, Renner loves him. Like, I think he was Renner's favorite prospect in that favorite prospect video. He felt like a lock, and then he's fallen out of the first round.
Just a couple other names. The guard run, Chase Pasantis, Emmanuel Pregnon. The couple corners, Colton Hood, Avion Terrell. Terrell's going to be interesting because he ran the 4.64.
Yep.
And we don't know if that was real. Kristen Miller, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. Jacob Rodriguez, we've been keeping tabs on. D'Angelo Pons, we've been saying a bunch as well.
TJ Parker, the Clemson defensive end, did fall out of the first round. And then Cassius Howell, the Texas A&M defensive end with the preposterously short arms, fell out of the first round.
So I think a lot of these names, look, it happens every year, right? We have some expected names. I think a big chunk of these names come off early tomorrow night.
Sure.
McCoy could fall forever, and a couple of players you'll just be wrong on. It's like, man, the NFL just doesn't value these players nearly as much. But we'll be keeping an eye on all of them. Mm-hmm. The tackle run did come true.
Yep.
There were 7 offensive tackles and 2 guards. Maybe a guard and a center.
Maybe.
Actually, with Ioane
and
then
maybe
whatever
more,
Keylan
maybe
Rutledge
more
is.
guards.
Maybe they're all guards. Who knows? But 7 in tackles in name only, perhaps, all drafted.
Tynos?
Yeah. Well, Tyno, I guess, is a new fantasy tight end in name only. Is a new fantasy term the last couple of years.
Well, that has to be that's a TE in name.
But you still pronounce it the same way. EI is a
Tano. But tackle is
Tano?
Yeah, Tano versus Tyno.
Tackle in name only. Like Proctor. Anything else for the viewers here? Can you people go to sleep? You're still watching us here at 1:47 a.m. Eastern time?
Yeah.
Appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody being here with us.
Absolutely.
First time in the studio, doing it live in round one. We're going to do it all again tomorrow night.
Yep, in a slightly less,
more comfortable.
slightly less formal outfit.
Yes. We'll be more comfortable tomorrow night. We appreciate everybody. Please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the thumbs up. Check out the memberships. Do all the stuff. Promote all the stuff. Help us out. But really just appreciate everybody for joining us live.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of streams. There's a lot of post-game streams.
There's a lot of people going live throughout the draft. So absolutely, we thank you for your viewership, your listenership, if you're listening to this on Audio Land. And any way you can subscribe to the show is appreciated. Absolutely.
So tomorrow night we'll probably be about 15 minutes early instead of 30 minutes early. Draft starts at 7. Go live around 6:45. So join us live tomorrow night. We'll do the same thing. We'll get our day 2 winners and losers right after the stream. Let's get some sleep. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. See you again tomorrow night. Draft 2, round 2, night 2.